So I'd like to welcome you for this casual race of this week from Sim Racing Malta. Primera casual race in Okayama Trek. Together with us today we have Joshua and Casper who will be commentated through this race. At 7:45 sharp we'll be doing briefing, and at 8 o'clock we'll start with the race. Today's race will be a 15-minute practice session, 30-minute qualifying session, and then 2 races of 20 laps each on a reverse grid. Be with you soon.
All right, thank you, Adrian, and hello everyone. Welcome to the TI AIDA thing, where we're a Nissan Primera casual race today. Of course, the track better known as Okayama, very difficult track in Japan. Of course, held the Pacific Grand Prix in 1994 and 1995. And to help me talk through this round is going to be Casper Kawadzietic, who will be alongside me in the commentary box. Hello, Casper.
Hello, everyone. This should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the last time that Sim Racing Malta raced any sort of touring car was when we got those Mercedes DTM cars at the Nürburgring, the short version of the Nürburgring Grand Prix tracker. And although there were only 8 drivers in that, it felt like there were 16 because they were all fighting for it, and it truly is an amazing bit of footage. Some of the best racing we've ever seen. So certainly go back and watch that after this if you're into properly close racing, which I presume you are. But for now, of course, we have a Nissan Primera race with the Nissan Primera BTCC car used from 1997 to 1999. Although 2000 and onwards also as a privateer car. Actually won the team's championship twice in 98 and 99, run by Team Vodafone. And you'll notice a lot of the cars today sporting Vodafone stickers. And of course, that remnants of the great golden era of this car in BTCC. Of course, they would never have raced here at this very Japanese of circuits. But they seem to have already taken to this track. I've seen some properly quick times coming in, comparative to GT cars almost. So definitely some quick cars, and it's going to be some close racing action, I'm sure.
I mean, it is very interesting because these cars are quite different to the Mercedes you mentioned. These are actually these contain a sequential gearbox, so they are semi-automatic rather than manuals. They have front-wheel drive rather than rear-wheel drive. A lot of power, not as much grip as you'd find nowadays on a front-wheel drive touring car. But front-wheel drive always lends to fantastic racing. And especially around as tight of a track as this is. Okayama is a very tricky track. It has 2 very distinct sectors, you could nearly say. A very tight sector in the middle and the end of the track, and a very, very fast initial part of the track. And it can produce some fantastic races. And I think for these cars, this track is absolutely perfectly suited.
Yes, certainly. It's a great race for touring cars. I remember racing some touring cars here earlier this year, and this track really did make them feel like single-seaters or prototypes. You know, you feel absolutely on top of it. And the curbs as well, they're properly suited for touring car racing, just to keep the car on the edge. But, of course, this event as well, a pretty big one we've got here. It's a big deal. We have a new sponsor here today, which is the sporting GPS watch manufacturer Garmin. So great to have Garmin on board, and it's good to see that Sim Racing Malta keeps bringing in new and prominent sponsors. Of course, we have a whole list of them already, which I'm sure we will bring up later on. But great to see new faces getting involved, and it just shows the quality of organisation that Sim Racing Malta actually is.
Absolutely, and actually, I have to say I use a Garmin product every day, every time I'm out on a bicycle. So I can't say I'm against having that kind of a sponsor. So yeah, absolutely, I think having a sponsor of this caliber is definitely a good show for an organization such as Sim Racing Malta, and I'm really happy to be able to commentate on this event for one of those reasons.
Yeah, certainly. And it's great to be able to watch a race with so many great high quality sponsors and run by such a great organization as well. And with such high quality drivers too. Of course, we know a lot of these drivers already. For example, Brandon Tabone, Omar Barbara, Keith Camilleri. Those all race in our main Porsche Championship. Terence Gregg, he's also a regular. I've seen Denis Ishenko before. But we have many, many newcomers today. In fact, on the original entry list, we had about 11 newcomers. I don't think that all of them are going to make it in, but great to see new faces getting involved, and some of them seem really quite quick as well. So definitely keep your eye out for the new names on the grid today.
Absolutely. And I have definitely seen a good few of those drivers being very, very fast in the past as well.
So we'll be going out for a short commercial break now, and we'll be back soon for the briefing.
Gigabit Internet issa f'Malta. Gawdi mill-Giga Power biss mal-Melita Flexi.
And we're back for this casual race today of Sim Racing Malta. Within 4 minutes, we'll be doing briefing, and then at 8 p.m. sharp, we'll be kicking off the race. Would like practice session. Would like to thank our sponsor of today. It's Garmin Malta, who's offering a GPS watch to the winner of the race of today.
So, just watching a little session that they're doing before the practice session actually starts. Of course, this isn't an official session, but good to see the same names as or some recognisable names rather, rising to the top. Terence Grech is at the top now. Keith Camilleri as well was just setting some pretty quick laps earlier. So definitely some names there to look out for. Look out for the regulars. Also look out for the newcomers. As I said, some of the interesting ones should be. Well, I was looking through the entry list earlier, and unfortunately, we haven't got some of the people I was looking forward to seeing. I saw that Hani Al Sabdi was on the entry list initially. Of course, he's leading our Porsche Championship, but sadly, no Al Sabdi today. But still, should be a very interesting race. New names include Arnold Potowski. He appears to be the top name out of those. At the minute, that is. Of course, this isn't an official setup session yet, so it's hard to gauge. We also have Chris Aloisio, or Aloisio Chris. I presume that's Chris Aloisio. It's kind of written the wrong way around there. Jamie Samut. There's a couple of other names I see that have been on the server recently, but aren't on there just now, so could make it in. In terms of names that I already recognise, I brought up Terence Grech, Brandon Tabone, Omar Barbara, Denis Ushenko, he's returning, and Justin Baruki as well. So certainly some... Oh, and Keith Camilleri, that's right, Keith Camilleri, can't forget him. And I presume that practice is starting in just a couple of minutes now.
Well, the briefing is going to be going in about a minute, but yes, there are a lot of drivers, and again, some we recognize, some we don't. But I think by the end of the night, we're definitely going to have a good idea about a lot of their paces. And I think that, to be honest, I really am seeing some close times already earlier in the practice, and now even the top two are separated by 4 tenths. So I think once we really see qualifying and the official practice, we'll see a proper indication of what we're going to be seeing in the race.
Certainly. We're expecting times of about, well, they're doing the late 1:33s now. I believe that Camilleri earlier got very nearly into the 1:32s. So times like that certainly appear to be possible. To be honest, that's really quite quick for this circuit. I remember, I can't remember what laps I was setting here in the Megane the other day when I raced the Megane here, but they were certainly they were a little bit quicker than this. But you know, Nissan Primera, this is the BTCC car from the late 90s. It's definitely still holding its own and looks very good while doing it as well.
Yes, it looks great. I think we're about to head to the briefing right now, or in a minute. So yes, they look fantastic, and I think they're about 10 seconds slower than GT3 car, maybe 8 seconds slower.
Tell you what, for a touring car, that's not actually that far off at all. But yeah, of course, taken to the 1999 BTCC Drivers' Championship as well by that was by Laurent Aiello, after also achieving very nearly championship success with David Leslie for a couple of years, and Anthony Reid as well got pretty close. So a legendary car within touring car racing. Oh, another name that drove this car for one round only in 1998 was Tiff Needell. Of course, Tiff Needell of Top Gear and Fifth Gear fame, and also drove one Formula One race in 1980. But everyone seems to forget that because he didn't exactly do very well. But never mind.
No, but I don't know why, but I always enjoyed, even when I was younger, enjoyed the look of the Primera BTCC car. I don't know about yourself, but me as a person born in the mid-90s, and kind of just growing up with these kinds of cars, I just love the look of Primera. And even if I never seen in a race, even if I was in a completely different area of the world.
Yeah, I'm afraid this is going to make quite a few people feel old. But this car was taken out of use before I was born, so I can't really remember it racing.
So,
all right.
So we'll be moving to the briefing channel now, so that we'll do the briefing for all the drivers. So we'll invite you to move up to the briefing channel. So I would like to welcome all the drivers. This is Adrian here with me, Justin, and George will be joining us very, very soon also. This is the briefing of today's race. As usual, it's important that you observe the rules. The game will be obviously giving its own penalties, so we'll stick to those penalties from the game. And we'll be also having live stewarding in case there will be some not good conduct on track. It's important, respect each other on track. One important thing is that if you go off track, please pay attention how to rejoin the track. That is very, very important. And respect the first corner. As usual, those that obviously race with us and new ones now will tell you we'll never be restarting any server. The only case that we should restart a server, a pile up in the beginning of the race, but otherwise there is no restarting of sessions. Today's session is going to be a 15-minute qualifying session, our practice session, 30-minute qualifying session, and then we have 2 races of 20 laps each with a reverse grid. It's important that you observe the flags. It is something very, very important. Observe the flags on track, especially obviously enough any blue flags for overtaking. So let's have a good race, clean race, and good luck everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was the briefing. Hopefully now we'll be having a short break, and we'll be short commercial break, and we'll be starting with the practice session in approximately 11 minutes.
Woo!
issa f'Malta. Gawdi mill-Giga Power, biss mal-Melita Flexi.
So welcome back for this Garmin Primera Nissan casual race of today from Sim Racing Malta. For those that have joined us now, we have with us Joshua and Casper today with the commentary of this race. Together with me here is Justin Mifsud, and very soon also George will be joining us. We'll be starting the practice session in approximately 7 minutes. We have some drivers already on doing a non-official practice on track right now. So I leave it to Joshua and Casper now.
All right, so it's not long until the start of the official practice session, where for the first time it has the official practice or the official session status to its name, and that's when we first see the drivers starting to push. So for now, of course, some of them will be pushing. They'll be just sort of getting their cars ready. It is open setup, so they're just getting the cars ready for the practice session, and then that will be their final chance. The practice session will be their final chance to get everything ready for qualifying, which will start as soon as that finishes, pretty much. So just waiting for the start of the practice session. Still topping this this non-official practice session is Terence Grech, but again, we're expecting the times to drop even further in official practice, and then further still in qualifying, especially as the drivers get hungrier and hungrier for those quick lap times.
Yes, and different drivers will have different ways of approaching a race with an open setup. Some drivers will have a setup ready from their previous testing, and of course, pretty much all the drivers are nearly expected to do their own practice in their own time, unofficially before the official practice begins. And of course, they have to make their own setups, which does take time. But most drivers, at least myself, when I do drive a race, I use the tactic of prepare the setup in advance and then just stick with the setup, and only if there is an obvious disadvantage I'm at, only then will I start fiddling with this setup, especially in a car like a touring car, where the setup is maybe not the primary factor in terms of your lap times. It's not nearly as much as if we were driving open wheelers. But some drivers may still be doing some small tweaks to their setups and trying to gain that 0.05 of a second or 0.1 of a second here and there, and which could end up costing people positions if they don't do it either.
Yeah, I have a very similar setup with very similar attitude when it comes to setup. It's very much just you get it done before the actual day, and then on the day it's just minor tweaks and trying to properly push them, find that lap time, because you'll often find that the lap times do just sort of start to drop, and that's all sort of instinctive. A lot of the time with other simulators, it tends to be the track sort of rubbering in as well, but Assetto Corsa doesn't really simulate that too much. It's all down to what the driver can feel and what the driver can do. There's also another driver who's setting laps now, but I don't quite know what to call them because they're registered with a pseudonym on this, SKRR Cams. But I don't know. I don't know quite what to call them at the minute. There's another driver who's just joined as well called John Agri, and Agris was on the entry list. I researched him earlier. He's done quite a bit of Assetto Corsa racing in the past, so we've got a driver in the field who could be quite an experienced one, but of course we never know quite who will surprise us, so look out for a lot of these new drivers, especially even though it seems at the minute like the time seems to be falling between Grech and Camilleri. Still not quite official practice yet though.
No, and something that you mentioned earlier was the track rubbering, and I just made sure because because Assetto Corsa does have the track rubbering in,
but not to the same extent.
Not to the same extent, and it's more of over the entire track, and it only happens if the track grip is under 100%, and it's based on the number of laps that people do. It's a bit more linear, and the track here is at maximum grip level, so we're not going to see any rubbering in of the track today. But to be honest, I wouldn't be expecting too much of a change between in these cars anyway, because a car like this usually doesn't really care if there's a slight bit less of a grip or more of a grip. It'll be minimal changes either way.
Of course, this is a touring car. You can very much just fling it around wherever you want to, and it sometimes just, or it often just finds the grip, you know, and it's very subconscious for the drivers actually, and that's what I love about touring cars. I'm not saying that it takes any less skill to actually be quick in a touring car, because that's absolutely not the case. But it's just that when everyone has such similar machinery under them, and when everyone's doing such similar things, it's about just finding those minute differences in a lap to power you to quicker laps, and that's what makes the difference between the front of the field and the rear. We have another couple of new drivers here as well. Adam Karkaszewski, the Polish driver. He is a very quick driver who's been doing a lot of endurance racing, mainly in GTs, and actually runs my brother in the Checker Flag Endurance Group series. So I know Adam Karkaszewski. And also Jason Absmer is in here as well, the South African racer, who's actually quite a big name in South Africa, especially within sim racing. He's a champion within the South African GT series on Assetto Corsa, I believe, and he's also taken part in a TV program in South Africa, a driving TV program, where he apparently was pitched up against a couple of quick celebrities and won. So very good.
So, practice session will be starting in a minute. Less than a minute actually.
That's perfect. And yes, so it's one of those celebrities where we don't hear about that many drivers from South Africa, I don't think, in sim racing, but it's nice. But apparently, I didn't know, but they seem to have a fairly ripe community there in that sense. So that's a lovely thing to see. And anybody that gets on a TV always gets so much exposure, and it's so nice to see us sim racers actually getting out there.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, I think one of the prime and most famous examples of that is a chap that you'll probably have heard of by now called Rudy Van Buren, who won a high-ranking R-Factor 2 championship last year, and then went on to also win McLaren's World's Fastest Gamer competition, and now he's their official simulator driver. And I tell you what, in the Netherlands, pretty much everyone knows who he is. He's been on TV pretty much. Just well, at the time he was one of the biggest news stories. So you know, it does happen, and Assetto Corsa has its fair share of stars as well. Hani Al-Safdi, very much a dominant driver in our Porsche Championship, and yeah, it's great to see such big names being associated with Sim Racing Malta.
So practice session is underway. We're just like a minute into our practice session of today.
Yeah, practice has just over 14 minutes left. It's a 15-minute practice session. We've talked through the first minute, and the drivers are making their way out onto the track now. And the first driver to start a lap, I believe, will be Brandon Tabone, because he was first out of the pits. I haven't seen him let anyone through yet. So Tabone is going to be showing us the way at the start of this practice session, and well, it's going to be a good chance to have a look around this very popular TI Aida circuit in Okayama. He's just coming through the final sector now. That right-hand hairpin that he went up is known as Hobbs, and then you head through the final two corners. The penultimate corner, very fast, called Mike Knight, and then the very final corner is creatively called Final Corner.
Well, that sounds like definitely a creative name, but at least it's very descriptive.
Now down the back straight and towards the even more creatively named first corner. Through that he goes. It's a, well, you touch the inside, then run it out to the curve on the outside. Here's the second corner, which is known as Williams. And then we're going to be heading up through the Moss S, completely flat out. A left, a right, and a left. And then it's effectively a hairpin, very fast hairpin, uphill called Atwood. It starts tight and then sort of levels out, and it's very difficult in the acceleration because you have to accelerate and and steer at the same time. Now down towards the hairpin. Again, creative name called Hairpin. Here we go to the right. You have to brake very, very late, as you were saying earlier, Casper, and dip it through the dip. And then there's sort of a crest which you have to go over to the right there into Revolver and Piper, two similar left-handers, one heading downhill, the other one starting off by heading downhill and then sort of leveling out and heading uphill. And now back through Redmond. And then, as I said before, it'll be Hobbs, Mike Knight, and final corner to the right to end this lap. And it appears to be a pretty quick one so far. Although behind him, we have to keep an eye out for Keith Camilleri as well, who seems to be going even quicker at the minute.
Yes, absolutely, and I think we're at the times that are going to be tumbling down fairly quickly, and it's going to take a little while, and that is definitely a time that's going to get improved by Brendan. But the thing is, the times are going to keep tumbling down because they always do. People just tighten up their lines, get a bit smoother every lap. They find their braking points, and obviously start pushing and pushing and pushing. And obviously, we may see some mistakes in practice, and that's fine. A lot of drivers do use practice as more of a, if I make a mistake, I know not to make it again. I personally take a lot of time take that approach as well. So what we may see from the drivers is mistakes now, but then they know once they are in qualifying that they cannot make mistakes, and that's where we're going to see the absolutely finest laps where people just get super, super concentrated.
It's a very sort of Gilles Villeneuve approach to a race, isn't it? You know, if I spin off here, then I know where the limit is. So often you will see that. But anyway, the first lap coming in was from Brandon Tavone. It was a 1:34.723 before being beaten by Keith Camilleri by 7/10 of a second. Keith with a 1:33.988. That's still not as quick as the quickest time I've seen in non-official practice. So these times are definitely going to come down. I shouldn't wonder. And Terence Grech now goes to second place, but Keith Camilleri is going quicker still. That's a quickest time of anyone in the second sector. He's in the third sector at the minute, although appears to be running slightly down on the delta. So maybe he's made a mistake just after the second sector here.
Now, something that's going to be also interesting is a lot of the drivers will be driving with their race fuel as well, because that there's always a bit of a difference between a race and a qualifying fuel. And the thing is, a lot of drivers prefer to be prepared for a race rather than just the qualifying. That's one difference that we're going to see, and maybe the times we've seen that we're a bit quicker were on qualifying fuel in earlier practice sessions unofficially. But I think realistically we can expect the times to go down still. However, it definitely looks like Keith is Camilleri is definitely going to be very, very strong and is going to be a contender for a win, along with other drivers such as Terence Grech.
What I tend to do in the practice sessions, sim races that I race in, is I tend to run on race fuel and qualifying for a lot of, or in practice for a lot of it rather, and then the final 2 or 3 laps, I have a pit stop and I come out again on my qualifying setup. And that just gets me into the qualifying mindset after I've had a bit of race practice, because it's qualifying that you need next, and that of course is it's important to get yourself into the mindset of it. Terence Grech has just improved his lap slightly there. Actually, yeah, he did with a quickest sector 2 time of anyone, but he's still over 2.5 tenths of a second off Keith Camilleri with that. So Camilleri obviously just has the more consistent lap there with fast sectors in sector 1, 2 and 3, even though Grech's second sector was faster. Now I'm also watching Justin Barucki. He seems to be improving his lap now. Can he get within a second of the leader here? Not quite, but Barucchi does improve his lap, and now goes into the gravel, so he'll be going... Oh, he's been hit. I think that's just 2 drivers abandoning their laps and going back to the pits now. So, yeah, that's exactly what just happened. And now we have to look elsewhere for the times to be set. I'm looking at a couple of drivers on their first flying laps, including SKRR Cams and Arnold Butovsky.
Now, I think we need to find out who Cam's is. Possibly, we just need to look at the starting grid. But
yeah, no, I didn't actually know that pseudonyms were allowed in this series, but I'll just refer to him as Cams for now until we know to say otherwise.
I agree, and at the moment, it does look like there are still some drivers that require and that need to set their first time laps. But then again, it's still early on, and I know that some drivers definitely will not be trying to show their cards yet. It's still early; we still have 7 minutes until qualifying. But I will expect drivers to come out with their with an attempted qualifying lap, just to make sure that they're up to speed themselves and just warm themselves up, because you kind of need to be you do need to be in the mindset for qualifying. You do need to be already moving. You already have to have the muscle memory for your brakes, for your steering, everything as you go into qualifying. Otherwise, it may be very, very difficult for yourself to make a perfect lap.
It's a pretty difficult track to overtake at this one, so a lot of the time qualifying is important here. But well, it's touring car racing. It's not a disaster if you lose out in qualifying, because there's definitely opportunity for overtakes and mistakes. But still, you want to be in that mindset just to give yourself the biggest possible advantage, and well, that can often make the difference between a second and a third, or just well, makes the difference between any two positions. And well, that's the importance of it a lot of the time. Jason Absmere now on the track for the first time as well. He's just on his first lap, as is Chris Aloisio. So a couple of drivers still yet to set representative laps. We've seen 11 laps in so far from the. How many drivers have we got on the server at the minute? I count 5 drivers on track or on the server who haven't set laps yet. So well, it's a pretty decently sized grid here today, actually, with 16 actual races. So I believe this is the biggest grid we've had for Sim Racing Malta. Very good.
Very good to see, and I think that seeing so many people actually race is very encouraging. And to be honest, Assetto Corsa is also very interesting in terms of its handling. I do enjoy handling it in it, and I think it's fascinating how the game, which is now a good few years old and now technically finished its development cycle, is still gaining some popularity in leagues like this, which is very good to see.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, it's very renowned for its graphics as well. I tell you what, this game often can't be separated from reality in terms of how it actually looks. And as you said, the handling as well really follows that. So Assetto Corsa, certainly one of the top sims, and well, a lot of the drivers prefer it.
Yes, and I'm not sure what it is about Assetto Corsa, but the feeling of the cars always feels quite right. When you get into a car, you know what it's doing. It's kind of this weird feeling that I get from very, very few simulators, where I just sit in and the car just tells me exactly what the tires are doing, if my tires are overheating, if my tires are dealing okay, if my wear is fine, if my wear isn't fine. Everything that's very important to a driver, to be able to feel just outright on the lap if everything is going okay or not. And I've been able to do some incredible things in Assetto Corsa in the past with tire wear, actually. Something very interesting.
Certainly. I mean, I haven't driven Assetto Corsa much. I tend to only use it for commentary, but certainly from what people have been saying, it's one of the best, and of course provides us with some good racing a lot of the time, as we saw with the Mercedes DTM cars, and as I hope and I am convinced we will see today as well. Not many drivers have actually improved on their laps yet. I presume that they've just gone back into the pits to sort of alter a few things, and now they're just sort of going out and trying to find some clean space on the track. It might be that they just did it the other way around from what I said, and set their qualifying times first before going onto race fuel. I don't see the logic in doing it that way around, but it's certainly it certainly could happen.
I highly doubt it. I think it's just mostly traffic and people maybe practice, maybe not trying to show their hand yet. I always say that racing is pretty much about 50% mind games and 50% speed thereabouts. So it's pretty important not to show your complete hand. And because if you do, people have a target to aim for, and you basically put the target on your back.
Yeah, certainly. I tell you what, though, it's pretty disappointing when you're one of the drivers on the other side of that. When you've been trying your hardest in practice, and you see yourself something like P2 or P3 on the timing sheet, and you think, yeah, everything's going brilliantly, and then you get into qualifying and qualify P7, and you think, oh, but yeah, it happens.
Oh, it does very much happen, and I don't know. This is only speculation for now, but I think qualifying is going to be very interesting. And something that's going to be very interesting as well in qualifying is people trying to find space and people trying to get a clean lap, because there are quite a few drivers, and this is not the longest track we've ever seen, to be honest. So, and very tight in areas, so it can be very difficult to get yourself a very clean lap, and then you have to and then you may be compromised by somebody coming out of pits. So it's going to be interesting in that sense as well.
A couple of ruined laps already. There was there were a couple that went a bit pear-shaped with traffic just now. Meanwhile, Keith Camilleri improved his lap by 0.08 of a second at the top of the order. It's now a 1:33.980. With the quickest sector 3 of anyone, so obviously the times are still coming down, but really not by much. And still, in practice, I think I saw about 3 drivers in the 1:33s. That is in pre-practice, so non-official practice. And now in this session here, there's only 1 driver in the 1:33s, so the times certainly aren't as quick as we saw earlier. But well, I'm sure in qualifying they're going to get quicker.
I'm pretty sure that's definitely the case. Also, something that we may see is a lot of drivers locking up their rear tires. So you may see smoke coming from these cars, and that's very typical for front-wheel drive touring cars. They're usually set in a way where the rear inside tire usually lifts when you enter a corner. So you may see people on the turn-in have a bit of smoke coming out of their rear end, and that's usually just a very, very slight locking on a wheel that's unloaded already. And that's very usual.
Tell you what, talking of traffic, I've just seen laps being lost for both Camilleri and Grech there through traffic not getting out of the way. And I don't know if those cars were on flying laps themselves or not. But whatever the case, they very much were getting in the way there. But anyway, practice now has ticked to 0, so the checker flag is being shown. And it's not long now until the qualifying session will start. It's Camilleri who has topped this practice session, followed by Terence Grech, Brandon Tabone, Justin Baruki, who actually I believe got onto another flying lap before the checker flag came out, John Agries, Omar Barbara, Jason Absmer, Chris Aloisio, Haitham I can't see his full name there. I believe it's Abdul Kader or Abdul Kader. I'll have a look on the entry list actually. That'll be yeah, Abdul Kader, Haitham Abdul Kader. Jamie Samut is 10th, followed by Arnold Patovsky, Adam Karkashevsky, Denis Ashenko, Sandro Sherry, and then drivers who haven't set laps include Cams and Golin. So there's another driver with the pseudonym here, Golin 46. So the 2 pseudonym drivers obviously not setting laps, and I'm not sure what we're actually supposed to call them, but Cams and Golin, I think we'll have to say for now.
I think that's exactly it, and I think we also have Daniel Stremeyer, or I may be butchering the name myself, but that's also a driver who hasn't set lap time.
Yep, you're right. Daniel Streamer, he was on the next page, so I didn't see him there. So is that a 17 car list so far? I think we have 17 drivers here, and that is the biggest grid that Sim Racing Malta has had, and well, that's great to see. Anyway, we now have about a 2.5 minute wait time before the start of the it says 30-minute qualifying session. Normally it's a bit shorter than that, but could be a 30-minute qualifying session.
I shall check that for you right now. And it is 30 minutes, so it's a 30-minute qualifying session. When people have a lot of time now, to be honest, at that point, you wouldn't be practicing and doing qualifying at that point. But yeah, I think what we're going to see is drivers definitely starting out pretty quick, and by the end of the session, they'll still be trying absolutely flat-out laps with full-on risk, since there's just so much time that they can just get back to pits and put another set of tires on it if something goes wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And qualifying, of course, as I said, very important for track position at the start of the race. Of course, that's the time when you most need it because of the accordion effects that happen as you brake for the corners. The cars get bunched up, the drivers behind have to brake earlier, and as a result, they do tend to drop back from the leaders as the field separates out. That's if you're a quick driver or not. So it's all about track position at the start, and that's why this qualifying session is going to be important. And of course, with 30 minutes as well, it could be that we don't see the properly quick laps until right at the end. So there's reason to be pushing pretty much the whole way through, because you don't know when the times are going to start tumbling, when the track's going to be at its optimum, when you're going to get the space because of the other cars. And really, I'd just be setting lap after lap and well, using up as much of the time as I could.
You have to use it efficiently, though, because the problem is a lot of drivers, and now this is something that I think a lot of sim racers do understand, but whenever people from outside sim racing, for example, watch sim racing, a lot of seem not to really know about it, but you do get tired as a sim racer, and you do get very mentally exhausted and physically exhausted. So over 30 minutes, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a couple of runs, a bit of a break in between, because just to refresh your kind of just refresh your mind, maybe get a walk around for a minute, get back into the car, get your another lap in, maybe with a fresh set of mind, especially at the end, and maybe even improve then when you have the time to analyze and kind of take in all of the mistakes you've made and kind of try to correct them.
Yeah, it tends to be mental tiredness with sim racing, although of course you can get physically tired as well through using the wheel so much.
So qualifying session is underway now. We're like 12 seconds into the session.
Yeah, you're right. The qualifying session is go, and I believe that the first driver on track is going to be Arnold Potowski. And no, there are actually drivers out in front of him there. I just wasn't looking. It might be Brandon Tabone again. So Tabone obviously likes to get out as soon as he can. It is going to be Tabone who is going to, well, he's come through the first sector first. So Brandon Tabone again leading us round as he did in qualifying. In practice, rather. He's like me then. He wants to get onto the track first and get that track position. I very much take that approach when I sim race as well. I'm usually the driver at the front at the end of the pit lane, but yeah, just gives you that clean air and that confidence. You know, it's always good to be first, even when it doesn't really matter.
The nice thing about it is, if you're especially say slower of a driver compared to your peers currently on track, it doesn't give you as much pressure because you don't see that time ahead of you yet. So you're free to do your best, and if you feel and you're driving by feel, and believe me, that's so much easier a lot of the times than chasing a target. Because sometimes when you chase a target, you know how much you have to improve, and you attempt to do everything you can in every single corner and overdrive the car, and at that time start losing time rather than gaining it.
Plus, if you set your lap first, you get the satisfaction of being P1. So even if only for a couple of seconds.
Indeed, it's one of those mental games.
Anyway, so I'm just watching Brandon Tabone going through the Moss S and up towards Atwood for the first time in anger. So up we go. It's very much a carousel here, and doesn't actually clip the inside or the outside there. That's an interesting line. Very much just runs it through the middle of the road, does Brandon Tabone. And that's not the line that I would have taken there. You have to sort of run the inside curve and then almost drift it out to the outside. I know that's harder in a front-wheel drive car. That tends to be the rear-wheel drive approach, but it's definitely interesting, the variety of lines that drivers take through that. Now we're heading through the two left-handers on the inside of the circuit. Those were Revolver and Piper, and up towards Redman and Hobbs. Almost a chicane of hairpins, really. It's a quick first sector, quicker than Camilleri so far, but Camilleri has actually gone a lot faster in the second sector. So Tabone and Camilleri fighting for the quickest lap at the start of the session. Looks at the minute like it's going to go to Keith Camilleri. Just watching the final sector of Tabone. He's going to cross the line, and what's the first lap? It's going to be a 1:34.642, but here comes Camilleri, and this is going to be a lot quicker. It's a 1:33.803, which I think is the quickest lap that I've seen so far. So Camilleri starting this qualifying session with a pretty quick banker lap.
Indeed, and this is going to be, of course, a good way to start your day, start your qualifying session, and now you can start really looking for that tiny bit of time gain. I'm not entirely sure if the tires in these cars do deteriorate much with their usage. So some drivers may actually stay out for 2 or 3 laps and continue on pushing, because the fuel for 1, 2, 3 laps will not make a difference in time realistically in a car as heavy as this.
So actually we've had another fastest first sector again from Brandon Tabo. It seems that he's very, very fast in the first sector. He just loses a lot of time in the second sector. So that definitely needs to be where he works. But in the first sector, he's very quick. He's actually just a pretty quick second sector as well. So Tabone definitely on it now. I don't think he's on for pole, but he's certainly on for a good lap here. And well, he's got a bit of traffic. That won't have helped. He's had to compromise his line a bit through Mike Knight, but well, yeah, that's cost him the lap. He's lost about 0.3 of a second through compromising that line, and indeed that was not a quicker lap from Brandon Tabone. And again, he gets held up going through turn 1. He's going to be absolutely fuming.
That is very unfortunate with that traffic. He can cut the traffic in the 2 worst possible places where you just cannot get through, and it seems like the traffic did not help either, parking themselves on the apex.
No, absolutely not. Well, of course, one of them went to the outside, but that's in a place where you need to go to the outside, so not very helpful. But anyway, just watching Justin Barucki. He's improving his lap. I believe he will jump a position with this. Here he comes across the line. He's currently 6th, and he goes up to 5th. So indeed, he did gain 1 position out of that. Camilleri did set a quick first sector. He appears to have backed off in the second. So Camilleri will not be going faster with this particular lap. Omar Barbara might be one to look out for. No, he's made a mistake and he's been passed. So Barbara down with this lap.
Now, here's something. Maybe we are seeing that 2 different setup philosophies there between Tabone and Camilleri. I'm not entirely sure, but Camilleri may be just a bit better, set up better for the twisty bits.
And Jason Absmeyer puts his car up to 2nd now, so a 1:34.510 puts Jason Absmeyer to 2nd, and he's now left the server. Now that's interesting. I hope he can make it back in, but Absmeyer went quicker than his opponents, except for Camilleri, who's a long way ahead actually by over 0.7 of a second, and immediately left. So hopefully Jason can make it back in, whatever the problem is. But anyway, Camilleri still at the top by over 0.7 of a second, and you have to look a long way down for the next driver actually improving their lap, although Camilleri does appear to be. So I'm going to have a look at Camilleri. Actually, Chris Aloisio's improving his lap quite a bit in the first sector. Oh, and Camilleri puts in the fastest first sector of anyone. So Camilleri, obviously, well, he was losing a bit of time in the first sector earlier. Of course, it was always Tabone who was quicker in the first sector, but now Camilleri's got it together. and Tabone again goes quicker. So Tabone quicker in the first sector, and we might have a real battle on between Camilleri and Tabone on this lap, although of course we've seen that Tabone tends to lose it in the second sector. But anyway, keep an eye on both of those. It's going to be Camilleri who sets this lap first.
I think if he can just manage to do his second sector perfectly, he can be here challenging. He's actually very, very fast, and so far pushing very, very well for these corners, and it's going to be very interesting to see if he can manage to keep his pace all the way through to the end of the lap, because at the moment he's still being very, very fast.
Okay, well, Jason Absmeyer's back. He's just said apologies for the disconnect. Had to turn down my my graphics. So obviously just a couple of lag issues, but everything's sorted and he's back, hopefully. Keith Camilleri just setting this lap. It's not actually as quick as it looked initially. He's going to cross the line. Oh, it was the fastest third sector of anyone, but actually not an improvement for Keith Camilleri. So I'm going to now switch to Brandon Tabone to watch the end of this lap, and it's going to be a quick one. I'd say it's probably going to put him up to second here, but not quite to first. Here he goes across the line. It's second. It's a 1:34.277. Still over 4.5 tenths off Keith Camilleri, who now goes quickest in the first sector.
Well, if Keith just can maintain that pace, I think may be unbeatable. But I think there are still some drivers which can match his pace. It's just a matter of them setting a proper lap. At the moment, he is, however, untouchable for anybody else so far that we've seen.
In fact, it's only the top 4 drivers within a second of him. So Camilleri absolutely... Well, I was going to say absolutely the quickest driver, but Terence Grech has just gone 0.271 behind him. So maybe Grech can challenge later on in the session. But Terence Grech now moves himself up into second position, ahead of Brandon Tabone in third, as Camilleri is meeting traffic in the third sector. He's still up on his lap, but he's going to have to back off for that. And yeah, oh dear, on the exit corner he really had to back off. And that is that lap. Well, he's in the pits. He's given up.
Yes, and it seems like he was faster, but he met a driver right in the middle of his lap, and it was just one of those awful moments when a slower driver is on his fast lap, but it's so much slower than yourself that you unluckily lose half a second and just cannot improve on your fast lap. And Keith was going for his fast lap. Camilleri was doing absolutely a fantastic job until that point on that lap, and I think he still can improve by another couple tenths at least.
Yeah, I believe that was Haitham Abdul-Qadir, who is probably not Keith Camilleri's favourite driver now. But sometimes it is very difficult to get out of the way, especially when you're also on a flying lap, even if you are slower than the car behind. And a lot of the time, that means you do technically have the right of way, and you don't have to give up place. But you're still not very popular with the leaders if that happens.
No, of course. The thing is the truth of the matter right there is Camilleri should have gone self-space, and that's just the way it is. Unless a driver in front of you is not on a fast lap, you're kind of supposed to know that you're going to have traffic on that lap, and you kind of have to manage it yourself. The only reason why a driver in front you should ever really catch up to a driver in front is when they either just came out of pits or just are not on a fast lap.
So, quick laps, of course, came in recently from Grech and Absmeyer, but Tabone now, as I said, back in front of Absmeyer. It's still just the top 4 drivers within a second of each other, but, well, getting closer up the front. Camilleri, of course, separated from Grech by just under 0.3 of a second, and then Tabone behind Grech by just over 0.2 of a second. So, not really that much up there on a track this length, but still, tenths of a second are often really quite difficult to find. So Camilleri will be feeling not quite as comfortable as he was before, but still pretty comfortable here. And he sets the fastest first sector of anyone. So Camilleri on another stormer. He just keeps turning them in, and we've still got about 18 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. Camilleri still flying, and he's actually about 0.2 of a second up as he goes down towards hairpin now. the hairpin to the right as we crest the hill and head down towards Piper. We'll see what his second sector is, as Terence Grech sets the fastest third sector of anyone, but that was actually on an out lap. So Terence Grech, fastest in the third sector, trying to set up for a lap rather than actually on a lap.
Yeah, so he'll definitely be trying to force that into a fast lap now, but I think he's losing time. He's nearly 2 tenths down on his fastest time in the first sector, so he's definitely not improving. However, somebody that is improving, apart from Camilleri, who's seemingly going to be very similar to his last time, maybe actually, he's going to be nearly 2 tenths up now. But another driver who's going to go really fast and we need to watch out for is Jason Absmeyer. He is going 7 tenths quicker than his fastest lap so far, and he's just about to go into 133s, I think.
And Keith Camilleri did go quicker. It was a 133.578, which puts him, as near as makes no difference, half a second faster than anyone else. But Absmeyer puts in the lap now. He must have made an error in the last sector because it wasn't even an improvement from Absmeyer. And Keith Camilleri is commanding this session.
Interesting, because I just literally, I think it could be just that my Delta thing here is broken, because most drivers, when I see drivers improving, I usually see improvement of the lap. But apparently Absmeyer, I'm not sure what happened there, but no, he did improve. So yes, at the moment it looks like Camilleri is just putting a commanding gap, and there's only 4 drivers at the moment that are within 1 second, and it's just barely as well, with Absmeyer being just barely above, just below a second behind. It's absolutely an incredible lead so far.
John Agris just improved his lap in 7th position. Didn't move up a position. He's still over a 10th behind Justin Barucki in 6th. And actually, Justin Barucki himself might be about to move further ahead with this lap. Barucki currently 6th. He set a quick first sector. His second sector wasn't blistering, but it was just about holding on. So if he gets a good exit to the final corner, this could be a quicker lap from Barucki, and he could challenge Barbara ahead of him. Let's see as he crosses the line. It's going to be an improvement, but it did not move him ahead of Omar Barbara. He's just under a 10th of a second behind, so it was close, but not quite there just yet. As Jamie Samut now is a long way up on his lap coming through the final sector. He could move up a couple of positions in this. He's in 13th position at the minute. Takes a tight exit to the final corner, and he's lost a couple of tenths of a second in that. Does improve his lap, but needs to pull the third sector together there, because that's where he lost a lot of time, and that's why he's still over 3 seconds behind the leader.
Yes, a driver that's slightly behind usually has one or 2 corners that are kind of main culprits, especially if they're quite far behind on time. It's very rare for a driver to be slower in every single part of the circuit, unless they're just generally just a bit of a slower driver. But oftentimes it's a major kind of misunderstanding of a corner that causes a lap to be quite a bit slower.
So, hello to everyone on the YouTube and the Facebook streams. If you search up Sim Racing Malta on either YouTube or Facebook, you will probably find the right place first. Well, you will. Sim Racing Malta. And, well, I see many people I recognise in the chats as usual, so that's good to see. Clinton Falzon says hi, Joshua. Joshua says hi, Clinton Falzon. Why aren't you on the grid, Clinton? It's always good to see our Clinton Falzon having a go, but well, obviously not on the entry list today. But anyway, still plenty of competition up the front.
Yes, there's still plenty of competition out there, and I think we're still going to see the best of the laps out of Terence and Brandon, Jason, and possibly drivers that are currently behind. Later on in the session, there's still 13 minutes left, mind you. So I think we're going to go into a slight bit of a down period for a minute or two, especially for the top drivers, just trying to reassess the situation. Although I see that Greg and Tabone are both on track, and a lot of drivers are on track. But I think a lot of drivers will always take 1 or 2 minutes to just calm down and maybe get another lap. I think that's exactly what Camilleri is doing right now, trying to find any bit of time he can still gain on his lap. And I think there's definitely is 1 or 2. There are 1 or 2 corners, which he can definitely improve so far still.
Yeah, well, it's about the halfway point in the session. Well, we've just gone over it. We're approaching about 12 and a half minutes remaining in this session out of the 30 we started with. So at about this point in the session, yeah, some of them will be taking breaks, just setting themselves up for one final dash, although others are still very much on laps. I'm just watching Cam's actually near the back. He's a long way down in terms of best lap so far, but he's improving his laps so far by almost a second. So improvements possibly coming in there. That won't be enough to move him up a position though. He's in 15th position at the minute, which is last of the drivers who have set laps. There's still one driver who hasn't set a lap, and that's the other pseudonym driver, Golin46, back. So still some drivers we haven't heard from yet, but still some time to go in this session.
Yeah, still quite a bit of time, in fact, and I think we're gonna have to wait until literally the last minutes to see the very fastest of the laps. But these cars seem to be a lot of fun to drive as well. But I see that some drivers are struggling as well with actually keeping the cars on track. So I wonder if that's the setup related, or if the cars are just, once you push them very, very hard, you can make mistakes. And of course, front-wheel drive cars are not always easy to drive, and it takes very particular skill set to be very fast in front-wheel drive cars as well. Since depending on the car, you may have to be very, very much more aggressive than real drive cars, but some don't allow you to do that. I'm not entirely sure what the Primera is like.
Well, I said we had just one driver who hasn't set a lap yet. We actually have two, because Sandro Scary is also on track, but Cherry has not set a lap yet. So a couple of drivers possibly having a couple of technical issues so far, but all seems to be okay so far. One driver who we didn't actually see any of in practice, but we've seen some of now, is Daniel Streamer. He's just moved up into 10th position, and he appears to be improving his lap again, possibly challenging for 9th here. 9th would, at the minute, be Arnold Potowski. So Streamer possibly moving himself up, but he's actually missed the apex of the final corner. He's run over the curb, he's lost that momentum, and he's lost the lap.
That's very difficult as well, because you suddenly lose another. You don't lose just one lap, but you lose 2 laps if you make a mistake in the last corner. It's one of those corners where it's a very, very fast exit, but you're trying to maximize the speed and momentum. But if you make a small mistake, you lose all the momentum, and you completely lose out on the next lap as well, since the first corner is quite a bit further on than the actual start-finish line itself.
Now, could Terence Grech be onto something here? He's gone up on his personal best in the second sector. He was a little bit down in the first sector, but if he can put together this third sector, he could just move slightly further ahead of Brandon Tabone. Admittedly, he won't get anywhere near Keith Camilleri, who seems to be completely in charge so far. But Terence Grech improving his lap with this one, and he's going to cross the line now. What's the lap? It is an improvement, and it's the fastest third sector of anyone, but it's only good enough for a 1:34.015, and that puts him still over 0.4 of a second behind Camilleri. However, I have actually seen Grech setting quicker lap times. In non-official practice, he was in the 1:33s. So Grech still has more time to come, and I'm a little bit baffled as to why he's not there yet after over 20 minutes of this qualifying session.
And I'm also quite interested, because what we're seeing is Camilleri being so much faster in the middle sector, and that's pretty much where he gains all of his time at this point. I'm just wondering how he does that compared to everyone else. I think he's just very, very good with the tricky section.
Omar Barbara now improves his lap, very nearly moves within a second of the leader, but doesn't quite. And no improvement in terms of overall position for Omar Barbara, because he was far enough behind Jason Absmeyer not to move up a place there, but less than 0.2 of a second to gain now, so possibly he can string together that time. As Grech again is improving his lap, again it's a quicker sector 2 than his best so far. So Grech could be going up here, as could Absmeyer. So a couple of drivers going quicker at the top. It's all going to be down to the final corner for Grech. He's just about missed the apex and again run over the curb. And that's pretty much that lap over there, because that's cost him the momentum, and he's dropping time all the way down the straight. That's not quicker from Grech. what about Absmeyer? He was quicker in the first sector. Now he's in the second, and well, of course, Absmeyer fourth at the minute, but not too far behind Tabone. Possibly some time to be gained there. Although he's run it over the curb on the exit of pitch there. Of Piper, rather. I was reading that wrong.
No, it's very easy to make mistakes all over this track, really. And the thing is, once you run over this curb, a lot of the people do like to use those curbs to maximize their exits and entries to corners. But the problem is, once you touch the grass, you lose time because you just don't have the traction on the grass.
Yeah, and Absmeyer backed off there to give himself a good run onto the final corner for the next lap, so obviously felt that lap was hopeless. Yeah, talking about the curbs, we do have some difficult ones here at the track. I remember when I was racing the Megans here, one of the accident spots was the exit of turn 1. As you get over the exit curb there, sometimes the car can very much sort of become very unstable and sometimes swap ends on you. And also through the two fast left-handers just before you break into Piper after a revolver. There's a curb on the outside which really bounces the car around, and I remember I touched that curb on the formation lap and had a big slide actually, which was really embarrassing. But it was made funnier and better by the fact that the driver behind me at the time on the formation lap was my brother, and he did exactly the same thing. So, well, it's yeah, steer clear of that one.
Yes, so it's a very interesting circuit, and personally, I have raced here recently as well. Although fair bit much bigger cars, GT3s, and I have to say, Atwood Curve is the one that always sticks in my mind as something being very difficult, and Williams being always a very nice kind of corner where you push the car to the absolute limits, trying to find that little bit near that gravel trap to the right-hand side of the track.
Now, I didn't see how this happened at all. But somehow, SKRR Cams managed to find himself on the other side of the barrier, bouncing over the hills. Now, I'm not quite sure how he managed that, but he's back in the pits now. So, well, something weird's happened, but whatever the case, we now have actually had all of our drivers setting laps. So all 17 of them have set laps. Some of them near the back don't look truly representative. They look like they've come out of the pits, and a couple of them might have had one sort of interrupted lap there, but whatever the case, we have 17 drivers who have set at least one timed lap here, and well, great to see a grid of this size.
No, it's good to see again, and I think a lot of I have seen Cams do a few laps already, and I haven't really seen him improve much. I think he did a 140, then 139, so I'm not sure if he's just not on pace at all. But regardless of that, it seems like we have kind of groups of drivers. This happens a lot in sim racing. We have groups of drivers where I think they'll be very close on pace in the qualifying and in the race, because the race pace will not be much different to the qualifying pace, I don't think. And what's going to happen is we're going to have actual clumps of racing drivers in the race itself, with maybe somebody running, and maybe Keith running away at if he's really this fast compared to everyone else, which he does seem to be.
Well, here, as you are saying, we also have some. We have majority of this grid of today, which are newcomers. That obviously, thanks to the casual races, they'll be practicing also, being under pressure during the races instead of doing any laps alone at home. Yeah.
Yes, indeed, and I think that's very important, because being in a race-like environment is the only way to learn racing. You cannot just be out there and learn racing by yourself. Sure, you have AI in some games, that's of course being one of them, of course. But the thing is, AI is not exactly a representative thing, because you can't, because the other driver, you know, it doesn't think, and you can kind of learn how the computer behaves, but you can't learn how a driver behaves. You have to kind of learn the general behaviors, but you have to understand and anticipate better, and the only way to learn all of that and being in traffic is to do actual racing online. And I think casual races are a great way of doing that.
Yeah, and it's good to see that it's a very sort of open entry list. You know, if you want to join in, you very much can, and you very much should. So definitely put yourself down for this. All you really need is a sim rig. That could just be a wheel and pedal setup, and Assetto Corsa, and well, in you come, and the more the merrier. So whoever you are, whatever experience you have, however quick you are, it's good to see you on this grid. And out of our 17 drivers, yeah, admittedly they're not all alien quick, but we really don't need that for it to be a good race. So yeah, it's completely fine, and it's a very good grid.
And I have to say, this is actually exactly the way I learned racing and online racing. It was me with a desk, a G25 steering wheel once I got one half a year into my sim racing career back in 2009, early 2009, I think it was. And so, yes, a good few years back now. But this is exactly how I learned. Racing small races for casual races where there's nothing to really fight for. But there's a lot of people who help you with setups, and kind of there's this more communal feel to it all, and you don't feel so bad when you don't finish well. And I think that that's the best way to learn, and you have to be able to race people. Again, I can't stress that enough. You have to be around people to learn racing. That's just the only way to do it.
Yeah, I remember. I remember my first sim race. Actually, wasn't that long ago. It was in October at the end of last year, and I loved it, despite the fact I really wasn't expecting to do it. I got about 30 minutes practice and came in and just gave it a bash, really. And yeah, it was a long way off the pace. It was like 4 seconds off the leader, because I hadn't had much practice, and because I wasn't going to be very quick anyway. But I enjoyed it, and I started ahead of Rudy Van Buren. I mean, he had a grid penalty, but still. Anyway, qualifying time has pretty much expired now. We are approaching the end of the session. The drivers will not get many more chances to start quick laps. In fact, the drivers who are in the pits now will not be able to go out in time to start another lap, which means that Terence Grech in second, Absmeyer in fourth, and Barbara in fifth are not going to be able to set any quicker laps. It's down to and in fact, Camilleri is now going back to the pits as well. So I'd say the session is pretty much over already. Now there are some drivers further back who are on quicker laps at the minute. John Agwiz is trying to improve his lap. He's in 7th at the minute, but he hasn't got the best of exits to the final corner there. In fact, that's not going to be an improvement. So I'd say this session is pretty much over, and it's going to be Keith Camilleri who takes a convincing pole here by over 0.4 of a second from Terence Grech, Jason Absmeyer, Omar Barbara, Justin Barucki, John Agwiz, Chris Aloisio, Arnold Potovsky, Daniel Streamer, Haytham Abdulkader, Jamie Samut, Adam Karkashevsky, Denis Ashenko, Golin 46, SKRR Cams, who is doing backwards donuts, and Sandro Skerry, rounding out our 17 drivers.
So this should be very interesting, and again, it seems like at the very least most drivers are in groups, so we're going to see some close racing, especially mid, somewhere up the front of the pack and mid and further back in the pack. I think we're going to see kind of 2, 3, 4 packs forming, and maybe Camilleri jumping away. But I think it's going to be very, very interesting, and hopefully we're going to see some very clean racing.
I was going to say this before, but I've expected some drivers to run away in the distance before in this series, and they just haven't. So I was expecting that with the DTM race as well. I think it was Camilleri again who was a lot quicker than the other drivers in qualifying and practice there, and then in the race he just didn't get away, and we ended up with a massive battle. The true fact is that racing is unpredictable. So as far ahead as Camilleri may be now, you don't know what his race pace is like, so I'd say we should very much just sit back and wait to see what happens here. And Keith Camilleri, well, he's got pole position. You can't win the race before it starts.
That's very true, and you know, when you're behind somebody, you can also see their braking points. You can see a bit more of the way they drive, and you can start copying them. And I think this is going to be a major part of the race as well.
So we're gonna have a quick break now, and before the race starts, and we'll be back shortly. And back we are for the starting of this race, the first race from 2. We're gonna have 20 laps in each race with a reverse grid, and we're like 38 seconds away from the start of this first race.
So this is the point where the tension really starts to build. Of course, it's going to be Keith Camilleri on pole for this first of the 2 races, followed by Terence Grech in second, and behind them Brandon Tabone and Jason Absmeyer make up the second row of the grid. We have 20 seconds until the race starts here, and well, the first sign of that is going to be when the lights come on. I see their outline now, and when they start to come on, we will wait for them to go off, and that's when the race will start. Here we go. There's 6 of them, and it's going to be go. Away we go at the start of this race, and away goes Keith Camilleri at the front. That's a good start, I think, from Camilleri. He's getting away from Grech, but Grech is actually keeping his nose on the inside here. Camilleri leaves his braking later. Is he going wide? He's going very wide. He's on the curb, and Terence Grech gets a good run out of the corner. He's going to the outside of turn 2. Here he goes. They're side by side up the front, and Terence Grech is holding on. They're side by side still through the Moss S. This is a dangerous place to be side by side, and Grech hops over the inside curb. Can he keep it there into Atwood? No, he can't, but again Camilleri runs too wide, gets on the curb, and again Grech comes back at him on the exit. Grech gets a good run, and he's through. So Terence Grech, actually no, because Camilleri still has to run here, and he's still dragging his way alongside Grech as they head down towards the hairpin. They've been side by side for the entire race, and Camilleri runs wide again. Grech almost runs into him. Now on the exit, they're still side by side, down through Revolver by side. Camilleri still on the inside for Piper, and this could be it now, but Grech keeps it there. Fantastic race at the start of this Nissan Primera Capture race. Grech leaves his braking too late now, and finally Camilleri cements the lead. But Grech's still there. No, he isn't. Camilleri finally cements the lead of this race, and it only took him 3/4 of a lap.
That was an incredible start, and side by side for some of the toughest bits of this track. That was incredible driving from Keith Camilleri and Terence Grech. Absolutely fantastic. And Camilleri goes defensive again, even though he's nowhere near Grech right now. But I think he's just trying to cut the draft for Grech as much as he can.
And it looks to have been a pretty clean start up the front. There are a couple of guys dropping down at the back. Cams has spun, Samut is a long way back, so there's been a couple of incidents. But up the front, it's been a good one, and what a race we just witnessed.
There's some action behind. There are 3 cars involved in a slight collision. So I just need to find what that was about, as we have a
spin. Yeah, John Aguis goes off from 5th position. He's in the gravel, he gets it going, but he's going to lose a lot of positions. We'll only be able to see at the end of this lap quite how many positions he's actually lost, but he's just dropped behind Haitham Abdul Kender, I think. So he's a long way back, I'm afraid. And off the road now goes one of the red cars. Who was that? Possibly, that was Denis Ashenko. So Ashenko has been bounding over the grass. But it's Grech, Camilleri leading from Grech, from Tabone, from Absmeyer. And then a long way further back after that incident is John Aguis, but he's not in 5th position. I believe 5th position at the minute is Chris Aloisio, but we'll see at the end of this lap.
Yes, it is Chris Aloisio and Daniel Strameyer in 6th. And interesting enough, Aguis actually did drop to 11th, right behind Petkowski and in front of Ashenko. But it seems like Ashenko and Petkowski and a couple more drivers were actually involved in a crash in turn 2 this race in Williams. So that's what I was actually seeing is slightly in the background as well.
Yeah, and after that lap, the gap between Camilleri and Grech has come out to 7/10 of a second. Grech knew that Camilleri is very quick here, and he really wanted to get past him pretty much immediately, because he thought, he knows that he might not get another opportunity, and he might not, because Camilleri certainly appears to be pulling away now. But still, they're within attacking range, so if Camilleri makes a mistake, Grech could be right through. They're followed by Tabone, followed by Absmeyer, and then Aloisio, Baruki, Streamer, Barbara, Karkashevsky, Petovsky, Aguis, Ashenko, Abdulkader, Golin, Samut, Cams. Cams has spun again. That's the second time I've seen And out of the race already is Sandro Sherry.
Something interesting I'm seeing as well is Camilleri has a lot faster car in a straight line than Greg. That's why we've seen him actually start pulling away on the straight coming up to the hairpin. So that was very, very interesting, and I think Camilleri just banks everything on his fast straight line speed in this race, but apparently he can still pull out some really, really good cornering out of it. However, Terence Gregg seems to be holding within a second.
Yeah, we'll see what the gap is at the end of this lap. The gap's only update at the end of every lap for me, but this is actually a... well, I think Camilleri is going to pull out by about a tenth on this lap. We'll have to see what they do in the third sector. He's pulled out by a little while further actually, and the gap is 1.1 seconds now after lap 2. So Camilleri, or after lap 3, yeah, Camilleri is definitely getting away now. And really, the two I'm interested in are probably Tabone and Absmeyer, because Absmeyer still has Tabone in his sight. Although further down as well, Aloisio and Baruki, very, very close.
I'd say look at Stremmer. Yes, Stremmer and Barbara, because Stremmer is actually going on the inside of Atwood's corner curve, and he's trying to get on the inside of the hairpin. And right in front of them is still the battle between, I think, is that Baruki and Chris?
Baruki and Aloisio.
Aloisio. So there are two battles going on, but I think Barbara actually pulls out of this move way, way early. However, Stremmer just seems to be going a bit too deep into the corner, but it's very difficult to overtake into the hairpin, even if somebody overshoots a bit, because then you get a bit of that speed back as nearly like a slingshot. And as Stremmer actually makes mistakes all over the place, but I think Barbara is trying to be very, very cautious still, and both of them makes a bit of a mistake coming into the Redmond corner.
Now, further incident report, Cams has been into the wall going up towards Williams on this lap. He's already dropped to over a minute behind, and we've lost Golling. So a couple more incidents have happened further back. But as you said, they're still close up front. And after that lap, actually, the gap to the lead didn't come out at all. So Grech and Camilleri still pretty close. In fact, Grech's last lap was quicker than Camilleri's.
Contact between Stremmer. Contact between Stremmer and Barbara. They both had turn one. Barbara just dressed straight into the back of Stremmer. Just couldn't get it stopped in time, and now they're separated by two or three different cars. So Karkuszewski now on the back of Stremmer.
And Baruki is ahead of Aloisio, so fifth position has changed. Baruki is ahead of Aloisio, and as you said, Stremmer and Barbara came together. I didn't quite see it, but Karkuszewski is absolutely within their battle now, and they both seem to have dropped back a little bit now. I think Baruki has dropped back further than... Actually, no, I'm trying to work out where they are, actually. Unfortunately, the sim only updates my positions for me after the end of every lap, but it certainly seems to be that they've lost a couple of positions here, and as I said, Baruki has got ahead of Aloisio for fifth position.
I'd say it's a very good time to watch Barbara as well, because Karkuszewski seems to be under heavy pressure now. And I think one more driver did make a mistake earlier on, losing quite a bit of time. However, at the moment, Barbara goes to the inside and has a lot better corner through Redmond. And in Hobbs, he already is way ahead. So now we may be seeing a bit of a repeat between Stremmer and Barbara very soon. He's just 1.4 seconds away, but I think he's a little faster than Daniel at the moment. And I think we may be seeing another battle for 7th place again.
Yeah, Karkuszewski made a little mistake there, and as you said, 7th place appears to be well, it's not actually that close, but Karkuszewski and Agris now battling. Agris on the inside of Karkuszewski, and he's got him. But can he keep it there for Williams? He's going to have to take the long way around, and he does indeed get it. Gets the better run out of the corner. John Agris up to 9th position now, and well, he's not given up. Has Karkuszewski locks up and goes wide there through Atwood, but yeah, he's lost the position, and he will be pretty annoyed about that, seeing as he was 2 positions higher less than half a lap ago.
Yes, you know, it always these things happen in racing. You kind of just make mistakes, but if you can still regain that position, that's always good in racing. You can always manage it in that sense. So at that point, it's not the end of the world. The worst thing is to have to retire from a race, but that's definitely not the case here. And I think he can still get back to where he was and maybe improve on his initial position.
Talking of that, we've had a third retirement. It's SK Cams. Of course, we saw him having various incidents earlier on in the race, and obviously he's succumbed to his damage. So out of the race has gone Cams, and that means we have 14 of the initial 17 drivers remaining and still circulating on the circuit.
And I'd like to just point out that Stremer is actually having a bit of a look at Chris Aloisio. They were very, very close now, but Stremer just lost a little bit through the final couple corners.
Ooh.
But now Stremer makes some mistakes, goes wide in turn 1, and there's definitely a lot more momentum from Daniel. Daniel not quite able to get into Williams, but now he has a much tighter line for Williams, getting much better exit, and is going to go to the inside through the hubs for the inside of the Atwood curve. And can he do it? Can he break it later as he's being closed? Oh, the door is being closed by Chris Aloisio by quite aggressively, and I don't know if that's really the way you really want to be racing, but it is definitely effective.
Yeah, and Aloisio is still on the inside, but Streamer is going for, actually it's Streamer on the inside, Aloisio on the outside, and if Streamer can break later, he might well keep the inside here. He does, but does he break too late? No, he gets it turned in perfectly, and he's got Aloisio. So Streamer up to 6th, Aloisio down to 7th, Barbara has to hold in 8th. I was watching the battle going on for 10th position as Petowski passed Karkashevsky going down the straight, and then missed his braking for turn 1 and went through the gravel. So Petowski's dropped back behind Karkashevsky, but Karkashevsky definitely seems to be struggling here. He made up several positions at the start, but obviously just can't keep the pace, and all of the good battling is going on ahead of him here. And well, Streamer got Aloisio on that lap, so battling going on up the front, and still it's close for 3rd place with Absmeyer not quite attacking Tabone, but he's holding within the 1 second margin, and is certainly considering doing something.
As there's
might well do it later on this lap.
There's a bit of a battle again for 7th place. Chris Aloisio being attacked by Barbara now. Same corners, Williams going to the inside. I think he's going to get through. No, Barbara pulls out a little bit, doesn't actually go through the Moss S's, and tries to go do an undercut for Atwood curve. And Chris Aloisio just making a bit too much of a wide entry, trying to get maybe a bit of the speed advantage on the straight, and now trying to draft his way through the straight. But I'm just seeing that Barbara tries to hold on to the inside, however he can't quite do it, and Chris Aloisio somehow manages to outbrake him into the hairpin, but then outbrakes himself more than anything, and Aloisio just cannot quite hold onto the position. And now I think we're gonna see Barbara go just right ahead and go way into the sunshine. So just trying to catch another driver now, and as he's being overtaken again,
and Barbara comes out of nowhere. Oh, there's contact as Aloisio just catches him on the exit and runs into him. Barbara, he well, just misjudged that exit there, did Aloisio, and he will tell you that Barbara was coming over on him. I don't really think he was. Earlier in this lap as well, a couple more mistakes from Aloisio. He outbraked himself twice. The first one I thought was sort of in sympathy for Streamer ahead of him, because Streamer also had a lockup under the brakes. But a pretty dire lap there from Aloisio, and he's lost a position to John Aguis for 8th.
Yes, no, that contact was with Aguis. He got overtaken beforehand by Barbara, and that was actually fighting with Aguis. So that was a bit of a contact with him, and it was more of an opportunistic move by John Aguis. So it was interesting, but Chris just didn't seem to see that he's there. So I think Chris needs to be more careful, as he's nearly spinning the car out for the Moss S's. That's weird.
Yeah, Aloisio just about holds on to it, but it looks as if he's struggling a bit now, as is Karkashevsky behind him. But Karkashevsky seems to be catching now, and Aloisio might have more problems in a little while. In fact, Karkashevsky has been getting away from Petowski a bit now, so possibly possibly overcoming some of his difficulties and just learning to drive the car as it is now. But whatever the case, a couple of drivers not quite having the pace that they did at the start of this race. But I tell you what, despite all of this going on, at the end of the last lap, there were absolutely no drivers registered within a second of each other. They all seem to have accordioned back together now.
Yes, and I think the one driver to look at again is Omar Barbara. I think he's going to be catching up to Daniel again, and I think we're going to see the same repeat of the battle we've seen earlier earlier on in this race, and I think it's going to be very interesting for 6th place this time. But very interesting enough, the top 4 has run away by 10 seconds now to 5th.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. In fact, the gap between 4th and 5th is over 10 seconds now. And that's quite incredible, seeing as we've only been racing for 15 minutes. So that's quite a gap there. We saw there was a gap between 4th and the rest of the pack in qualifying, because only the top 4 drivers were within a second of the race leader. But I wasn't expecting it to be quite like that. It's just because everyone behind has been fighting, and the top 4 have just been running away with it, really. Especially Camilleri, whose gap is now over 2.3 seconds. That's a brilliant race so far from a very, very quick driver.
Yes, he's definitely doing his job this time around. As I'm seeing a bit of a battle for 9th, essentially. It's a 3-way battle between Chris Aloisio, Adam Karaszewski, and Arnold Petkowski. They're all fighting for it, and they're all within a second of each other. As Chris Aloisio makes a mistake going into the hairpin, and now is very, very adamant about keeping his inside. There's a contact between Adam Karaszewski and Chris Aloisio, and Karaszewski goes through, and Petkowski goes through both of them at the same time. And I think we're also about to get a battle between for 6th place between Omar Barbara and Daniel Stremer, because right now they're within a second of each other, and I think this is going to be a repeat of what we've seen just about earlier. Of course, Omar Barbara being a bit faster by the looks of it. However, Stremer making his absolutely fastest lap so far, including qualifying 135.6. So that's very interesting to see from Daniel. And I think he's absolutely doing his best. But I have a feeling like Omar is definitely going to try to get that 6th at all costs. But however, hopefully, very cleanly. And we're within 0.9 of a second right now for that battle, and I think everyone else on the track is currently increasing their gap. Although I'm seeing the gap.
We've lost Adam Karaszewski. He stopped by the side of the track, and I don't know quite how that happened, but we've lost Adam Karaszewski. He is going to be our 4th retirement now from 10th position in this race.
That's sad to see, because obviously you should. There isn't damage, I don't think, either enabled, or there's very little damage enabled in this. So it would be very. So it's kind of sad to see people just finishing their races this early and not trying to go to the end.
Yeah, and of course Karaszewski was right in that battle there, and providing us with a lot of entertainment as well. But well, we've lost him from this race. So. 13 drivers remembering now. Unlucky for some, but anyway.
Well, I think we've seen that in real life to backfire on a certain team last year. But for sure, it's 13 drivers. I mean, it's still, we've only lost 4 drivers, so this is not too bad. We still have quite a few going on. And I think that we still are going to have a couple battles before the end of the race. Again, I think the biggest one that's brewing at the moment is for 6th place. And I think both Daniel Stremer and Omar Barbara are pushing their absolute hardest to try and either get away or try to maintain their position or overtake.
Of course, not far back from them is John Agris. He's about 1.9 seconds back from Barbara. So if the two were to battle, then I'm sure Agris would not hesitate to attempt to close the gap. But Stremer staying a little bit ahead of Omar Barbara at the minute. He's always a couple of steps ahead, and it's going to take a little mistake, I think, from Stremer, because he's been consistently running about the same pace as Barbara in this race. And well, Barbara needs to get really creative with it if he's going to catch Stremer here. But still definitely time for things to change in this race. We're into the second half now, so we've got 8 laps remaining in this race out of the 20 we started with. Still plenty of time to go.
So it was interesting enough, actually last lap was slightly in favor of Daniel Stremer. It was by 0.03 of a second. I wonder what's going to be this lap. But I don't think Barbara is actually closing down that quickly. I highly doubt it's third air, but I think it's just Barbara maybe having a bit, maybe struggling a little bit now with the car compared to Stremer, or Stremer just pushing a bit harder, but he has just lost 1/10 this lap.
But there's a mistake at turn 1 from Daniel Stremer there. He locked up and got a little bit sideways. The gap as they crossed the line was about, well, it was just under a second. The gap now I expect will be about 7/10 of a second. So if it holds like this, they would have got a lot closer on this lap. And if Streamer can keep making mistakes like that, then Barbara certainly shouldn't give up hope yet. But it's going to be a tricky one for Barbara, even if Streamer makes a couple of mistakes, because Streamer does seem to have the slight pace advantage here, but made a mistake through turn 1, so Barbara still right with him.
And Barbara going much quicker throughout with the curve, gaining a couple tenths, and it seems like Stremer is making mistakes, so we're only about 7/10 apart right now, and it's looking very close, and it just seems like Barbara has much more tighter lines. He's still sliding a bit, but what we're seeing from Stremer is going a lot wider in corners, not quite able to get his braking points right, just not quite able to get his perfect laps in this time around. He's been doing pretty well until now, but right now he's just not quite able to do the same tight lines as Omar Barbara. So I'm just really wondering if Omar will be able to catch up over the next lap.
Well, I've seen 3 lockups so far in this lap from Streamer, so maybe he's struggling a bit with the brakes now. Needs to change the bias, the brake bias. You can, of course, I believe these cars have onboard brake bias adjustments. I don't see why they wouldn't have. They're from the right era, and the gap now is less than 6/10 of a second between Streamer and Barbara as they cross the line. This, to me, is Barbara going on the attack now, and Streamer's going wide, so Streamer making another mistake, and Barbara's right with him. In fact, there's a slight overlap as they head through the Moss S now, but Streamer forces Barbara onto the curb, and Barbara has to back out for now as they head towards Atwood. But Streamer again goes wide, misses the apex. Here comes Barbara on the inside. He's going to get a slightly, well, they're going to get similar exits to the corner. Streamer with the slight pace advantage, or the slight speed advantage here, as they head down to the hairpin, and Barbara is still looking at it. He's still looking at it, and he brakes later. He's going to the inside. Streamer sees him coming, and Barbara leaves it too late, runs it to the outside. Streamer gets the switch back and keeps 6th position.
In fact, Barbara actually got on the brakes earlier. They got on the brakes a bit at the same time. However, Barbara just braked a lot earlier on the track itself. However, he braked a lot less, which is why he outbroke himself. Basically, didn't brake as hard as Stremer did, and he managed to just get that perfectly. And Barbara just not quite able to use the overlap he got at the very end of that straight. And I think that was very good defensive driving from Stremer, and a bit of a mistake from Barbara. However, now Stremer making a mistake into the last corner, and now it could be all over for him soon enough if he keeps on making those mistakes, because there is now a very fast section, and he's been making mistakes all over here.
And while we've been watching this scrap, we've been completely ignoring the fact that Absmeyer has caught to bone for 3rd, so the gap between those two has come right down, and that could be a battle that really shows itself later on. He's been catching him hand over fist for the last couple of laps. It was 2 seconds just now, and now it's a lot further. John Agwis made a mistake on that last lap because he was running 8th. Now he's in 9th behind Potowski, despite the fact he was a long way ahead of Potowski before that, so Agwis has been dropping back.
And we have an overlap between Stremer and Barbara. Again, the same mistake from Stremer, just not quite able to go quickly through Atwood curve. And now it's much better for Barbara. He seems to have the line. He seems to have everything now. He seems to have an overlap. He brakes quite late, quite well, but he actually brakes too well and actually stops too early. And Stremer just seems to be able to carry enough momentum and brake early enough to hit the apex before Barbara even got to the turn-in.
Wow, and again, Streamer still ahead. It's good defense from Streamer when Barbara gets close, although he of course, part of defence is not making those mistakes that lets your opponent get close, and he's certainly not been doing that. But again, second and third, again coming in. They're now less than half a second apart as they cross the line that time. Absmeyer is really charging towards Tabone, and with 5 laps remaining, he could definitely have a swipe at him before the end of this race. The South African catching the Maltese driver here, and Jason Absmeyer getting closer and closer. Maybe Tabone just used his tyres up a bit too quickly, or maybe Absmeyer's just suddenly found Tabone and he's catching him.
Yes, it seems like this could be a good battle. I'm going to just keep an eye on the 6th place battle as well, because they seem to be very, very close themselves. But definitely Absmeyer just sharpening his teeth and trying to get that 3rd place from Tabone.
Well, there's a big difference in line through there. He was very wide into the hairpin to get a good exit to it, and he was right on the back of Tabone as they went into Revolver. Actually had to lift off surprisingly early there to avoid running into the back of Tabone. So they are, well, close enough to touch each other, and that's when things start to get tense, and that's when the drivers know they are properly locked in combat. And Tabone and Absmeyer going at it for 3rd now with 4 laps of the race remaining.
Absolutely, and I think this is very exciting for those 2 drivers to be so very close throughout this entire race and still be battling until this point, and until probably the end of the race at this point, because they seem to be so very similar on pace. And I think it's a very similar situation to Barbara and Stremer. They're very, very similar paces. They're very, very, very good driving for both drivers.
Very, very good. Talking of Stremer and Barbara, on that lap they seem to have remained a bit steadier than previously. So the gap between them is going to be, as they cross the line, it's going to be 0.7 of a second. So pretty much what it was before. Although I'm still watching 3rd place because that also remains steady at less than half a second. That is properly attacking range. They are still properly in a battle here.
That gap has actually widened to about a second now. I think we've seen some mistakes from Absmeyer.
Yeah, possibly, but certainly not over yet. Oh, there's some traffic there on the exit of the corner, which seems to have got out of the way nicely. It's still there on the inside, but didn't really hold up very well, so that was okay. On that lap, Arnold Potowski has been passed by Chris Aloisio again. Oh, but Aloisio's in the gravel. So Aloisio missing his braking in turn 1, going through the gravel, and he's just been passed by both Potowski and Dashenko. So Potowski and Dashenko both getting through, and Dashenko is right on the back of Potowski now.
Well, that is definitely a mistake, and that's that's unlucky to be in the. Oh, Dashenko actually hits Potowski going into the corner, but curve, and actually they both get through it somehow, even though both of them had a bit of a contact, and somehow there's no change between them 2 for 10th place currently. Oh,
well, that was a bit of a hairy one, but anyway, still running. Another lap gone, and that time it was about just over 6.5 of a second between Tabone and Absmeyer. Still very close. What about Stremer and Barbara? There are about 3 separate battles here.
Very
close.
Very close. Indeed, I think that's basically bumper range. I think they're just about 1 mistake, and Stremer is going to lose his position. I think that's not quite it, because he just he parked himself in the middle of the road, and Barbara just couldn't get an exit. However, Stremer just is struggling to get his car through the corners, through the fast bit. He cannot quite hit the apexes, and he just goes wide. However, Barbara is not quite able to capitalize on it, and he's braking very early for this corner, giving a lot of time to Stremer. However, Stremer just outbrakes himself by about a mile, and now they go side by side, and for the first time, I think Barbara is actually ahead of Stremer, and I think Barbara should really go closer and nearly close the door on the outside. So I don't know what exactly happened there, but I've just seen Stremer just somehow morph back a little bit, but Barbara seems to be a bit too cautious at the moment with attacking, and he just gets it now. Somehow manages to overtake Stremer as Stremer goes really wide, and it nearly looked like he let him through, but of course he didn't.
Well, I tell you what, I breathed a sigh of relief there, because that's been happening, or that's been a battle that's been raging for laps, and finally they've sorted themselves out, and it hasn't come to blows. It was always at that corner there for Stremer, always through Atwood, where he'd just go very, very wide, and Barbara would find himself up the inside. Stremer should have been a bit wiser to that and should have seen it was happening and, you know, changed his line through the corner to stop that from happening, because he was losing a lot of time through there and allowing Barbara to attack every single lap. But well, Barbara finally took advantage of it and got past him. And again, Tabone and Absmeyer less than half a second apart. So we're on the penultimate lap of the race, and third and fourth are again locked in combat. Fantastic.
It is a fantastic little battle, and I think this is going to be when they're going to attack the strongest.
And Streamer pitted. Streamer pitted. Now, why was that? Because we're not expecting pit stops. Maybe there was damage. Maybe he simply didn't put enough fuel in the car. But
it was not enough fuel, if anything, or the tires gone. But why would you go for tires after 19 laps? That's with just after 18 laps, sorry, and just going on to the last couple laps of the race.
Well, that's a bizarre one. I'd say he probably didn't put enough fuel in the car, but whatever's happened, Streamer's lost a position through that. He'd already lost a position to Barbara, and now John Agwis has got him. And, well, he's not getting that one back, so Streamer, through what I expect to be a miscalculation, has lost a position and dropped to 8th place. And he will probably be feeling really quite embarrassed about that.
Yes, also, what is going on? Right now, I'm just looking, and so Tabone at the moment is being attacked by Absmeyer for 3rd place still. Yep. So Baruki seems to be in a world of his own as well. So somebody who we haven't mentioned all race as well. So Justin Baruki having a nice little calm race, I think, at this point.
Well, I should point out this is a last lap battle between Absmeyer and Tabone for 3rd position, because we are now on the final lap of this race and down towards the hairpin. This could be one of Absmeyer's last chances. He's a long way back. Tabone does go defensive though, and if Absmeyer can get a good exit to the corner, he doesn't get a good enough one. Through Revolver he goes, and Tabone now goes defensive again. That's not a good place to do it through Piper, and it's a good exit to the corner through Absmeyer, but he has to be careful because he very nearly taps Tabone on the exit. Now up towards the 2 hairpins, and I'm going to have to switch away from that because round the final corner comes Keith Camilleri, and Camilleri is going to cross the line to win this race by almost 4 seconds rather. So Keith Camilleri has won the race. Terence Gregg is second. It was actually less than 3 seconds apart in the end, but that was mainly due to Camilleri backing off to win the race. 3rd place is just about going to be Brandon Tabone, who holds on to it. 3rd place there, and Tabone is 3rd, followed by Absmeyer. They were less than 0.3 of a second apart. Well, less than 0.4 of a second apart. Justin Baruki is going to cross the line in 5th position. He had a very quiet race actually. He would have enjoyed that one, but Baruki across the line in 5th place. 6th is going to be Omar Barbara. He is just coming through the final turn now. And a lot of these drivers aren't going to be allowed to finish this race because the wait time seems to be set a bit too short again. We saw that last time out at Spa, which is a big shame, but it actually means that's going to mess with the reverse grid as it did before. The drivers who should be starting at the front won't be allowed to because they'll be basically classified as having not finished the race. So obviously those problems haven't been sorted.
Oh, no.
But anyway, the overall result was Camilleri winning, followed by Grech, Tabone, Absmeyer, Baruki, Barbara, Agris, Streamer, Abdelkader, Petkovsky, Ashenko, Aloisio, and Samut. And actually, Samut's going to get the reverse grid pole, and 2nd is going to be Omar Barbara in 6th, because the server automatically generates the reverse grid. And that means that the drivers from 7th to 12th, who should be getting a high position in the reverse grid, won't be.
So we're going now for a short break before we come back for the second race.
Shorty, breaky.
Shorty, breaky.
Okay. See you later, I suppose.
issa f'Malta. Gawdi mill-Giga Power, biss mal-Melita Flexi.
So, welcome back to this Nissan Garmin Nissan Primera casual race from Sim Racing Malta. We're 1.5 minutes away from the second race, which is with a reverse grid. Will be starting in 1 minute 23 seconds.
So, waiting for the start of the first race, or the second race rather. It's the same length as the first race, but the 7 drivers who managed to finish that race are going to be reversed in terms of the order. So it's going to be Jamie Samut who starts at the front of the pack after finishing 13th on their lap down, and then after that we have the 6 drivers who finished from 1st to 6th, but the other way round. So Omar Barbara, who finished 6th, is going to be starting from 2nd. Then it's going to be Justin Barucki, Jason Absmeyer, Brandon Tabone, Terence Gregg, and Keith Camilleri. And then the drivers who were timed out at the end there: John Agris, Daniel Streamer, Haitham Abdulkader, Arnold Potovsky, Denis Ishenko, and Chris Aloisio. Also, we haven't yet got Adam Karkashevsky, Colin 46, or SKRR Cams, or Sandro Scary. So those drivers obviously not coming back after the end of that race, and it's going to be a 14-car race. So, well, we're just waiting. 13-car race rather. We're just waiting for the start of the race. It's going to be in about 10 seconds. So get ready for this race. Race 2 of the weekend. Here come the lights, and it's going to be go. Away we go, and it's going to be Omar Barber, I think, who gets the jump on Jamie Samut. He goes to the inside at turn 1. Samut's braking later, and Samut leads it into turn 1. So Jamie Samut, who finished last at the end of the first race, is leading us up into turn 2, followed by Barbara and Barucki. But Barucchi's on the inside, and Barucki gets Barbara pretty much immediately. There he goes. Oh, contact! And Barucchi's in the wall. Oh dear, it just looked like. And there's another car involved. Who was that? And more cars involved. Greg is around. Agris is around. And more cars were piling into it. Potovsky's been involved. Aloisio got sideways. Utter carnage at the start. Streamer's off the road. And Terence Gregg doesn't appear to be going anywhere. He's in the pits, but, well, terrible start to the race for Terence Gregg. And it's Jamie Samut leading us here. It was just that Gregg tagged Barucki as they went through the Ross S's, or the other way around. It depends how you judge it. And Gregg got fired off towards the barriers, hit them hard, and up in the air and back onto the track he went.
We will definitely, after the race, the stewards have something to look into in this start of this race. So we'll be obviously looking into it later on after the race and giving the relative penalties.
And as we have a battle for the lead, in fact, right now, Samut is being at the moment under pressure from Brandon Tabone. He's definitely putting on pressure on the surface straight, and he's going to be trying to go for the inside move into the first corner. And he definitely has the overlap. He was faster in the straight. Can he do it? Can he pull the overlap? Was so little that Samut didn't see it, and not quite able to capitalize on it from Brandon Tabone. But Tabone now trying to get a better line for turn 2, but he cannot quite do it.
Also, I saw an incident between Barbara and I think either Agris or Streamer further back. And Agris is going wide, and Barbara is coming through as well. But up the front, as you said, Samut and Tabone right together. Following them is Abdul Kader, who managed to sneak his way through the damage at the start. And then it's Keith Camilleri in 4th and Chris Aloisio in 5th. And Camilleri is going for Abdul Kader up the inside, and Tabone's going for the lead. Tabone up the inside of Samut for the lead of the race. There's contact, and Samut gets tipped around. Samut spins, gets it going again, tags the barrier, and he's lost 3rd, he's lost 4th, he's lost 5th. Has he? Aloisio is going to try to hold on, and he does. And Petkowski's got through. So Petkowski is actually in 5th position now, ahead of Aloisio. And Samut is down, I think, into either 6th or 7th position, and he's losing another place. Through goes not John Agris, he's further back. I can't work out who that actually is.
Chris Alozio, and now Samet is actually in 6th at the moment. The standings are Tabone, Camilleri, Abdelkader, Petkowski, Chris Alozio, and Samet are the top 6 at the moment, with Barbara behind. But yes, I think it was the case where we've seen Samet just close the door on Tabone, who was already there, and I don't think Brandon could have done very much there to defend from that.
Well, very, very chaotic start. The race 2 does tend to be, and today it seems to have hit a couple of people. And the order now is Tabone, followed by Camilleri. So Camilleri already through to 2nd position, and just 0.6 of a second behind Tabone. Definitely watch Camilleri. Then it's Abdelkader, Petkovski, Aloisio, Samut, Barbara, Agris, Streamer, Absmeyer, Ashenko, Grech, and Baruki. So in fact, Baruki's in the pits. So some damage to Baruki. Grech did get going. Of course, we saw him teleporting back to the pits at the start, but he's got going again, despite, I think, being a lap down from Ashenko ahead of them. He is indeed.
He is actually, I think, now 3 laps down on the leader, so... Or actually 2 laps down. He's... it would be a bit weird to be 3 laps down when the race is only 2 laps, 2.5 laps in. But yes, at the moment, it just looks like Greg is going to be quite far down, and he's going to be struggling to get anywhere from here.
And Camilleri again having a look at Tabone in the lead. He's getting a good exit to that corner towards Mike Knight, and well, if he can get a good exit to the final corner, he can have an attack. Of course, he finished almost half a minute ahead of Brandon Tabone in race 1, so you'd say that Camilleri would have the legs here, even though Tabone is a very quick driver. But Camilleri still looking for a way through. The gap is less than 3.5 tenths of a second there, as they go up towards Williams for the 3rd time of asking, and it's still Tabone leading from Camilleri. They're over 3.8 seconds now ahead of Abdelkader in 3rd position.
There is a reason why they say that it's easy to catch up, but it's a completely different story when it comes to overtaking. Of course, to overtake the other driver nearly always has to either make some kind of mistake, or you just have to be so much quicker that you can absolutely power through everywhere and just not have to worry about it. But yes, at the moment it looks like Camilleri is not quite able to overtake Tabone, but I think there is a battle going for 3rd, in fact. And at the moment, Petkovski going for a very, very late dive into the hairpin, and is able to stop it on the apex, and it gets hit from the back end by Abdelkader, I think, to be precise. It's a very, very odd move, but at the moment it looks like he got stamped out of the way.
And who was that who managed to slot between all of them there? Because there was a white car that went directly down the middle, and I think came 3rd place as a result. Was that? I think it was Abdelkader again, but while that was happening, Aloisio had a spin, and Barbara went into the wall at turn 1. So there were a couple more incidents there. Aloisio from 5th, Barbara from 7th. Both lost a lot of time there. In fact, Barbara, I think, is now running 11th, so lost a lot of places out of that. And Camilleri takes a look to the inside of Tabone again. This is through. Is that app? No, it's turn 1, and now towards Williams. He's very, very close. And it's Samut now up to 5th position, looking at the leaderboard. Barbara did lose a lot of places. From 4th down, it's Petkovski, Samut, Chris, Aloisio, Agris, Streamer, Absmeyer, Ashenko, Barbara. But what I'm watching is the battle for the lead, because again, Camilleri's close. And on the exit of Atwood, he's gaining down the straight. And is he going to take a look to the inside here? Not quite, because Tabone leaves his braking later, but still makes the corner nicely. And Camilleri's going to have to try again. But I tell you what, he's certainly not going to be the happiest of drivers stuck behind Tabone like this. Even though they do have a lot of pace over their rivals, and with the incident that happened last time around, the gap to the car behind is actually 8.5 seconds.
Yes, at this point it seems like Camilleri and Tabone just have it for themselves, and at the moment Tabone is driving a very good race, not as fast as Camilleri, but he is definitely not making enough mistakes, and especially in crucial areas, he's not making mistakes, which can at any point lose in the place or give Camilleri the line to that he needs to go for a corner and to overtake, even if Camilleri is a fast driver currently. And the driver we were looking at earlier that we didn't know who it was in between all of those cars was actually Terence Gregg, who's now apparently pitted. And I think he may be gone out, maybe actually out of the race. I'm not entirely sure, but I think he is.
Yeah, Terence Gregg, our first retirement from this race, and obviously felt there wasn't much point to it anymore, seeing as he was so far back, and Gregg is out. Also, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, well, Baruki's still in the pits. He has been for laps, so I'm not sure whether we can classify Baruki as our first retirement or not. He's still in the server, but whether he's actually, well, I don't think he is still in the race. So I think we can say we've got 2 retirements in this race, Baruki and Gregg, and those are 2 quick drivers as well. So it's a shame to see those 2 retiring from this race. And again, Camilleri had a little look at Tabone into Revolver, and again, Tabone just keeping his nose clean at the minute and staying ahead in this race. And Camilleri not able to find a way through just yet.
Not quite just yet, but I think he may be looking at trying to get the place. Also, has something happened to Strimair?
Well, something's happened to Abdul Kader there. So Abdul Kader lost a couple of places. Oh, there's a very laggy car on the exit of that corner there. Now, I'm not quite sure. I'm trying to work out who's where, actually. Is that a lapped car?
It's the battle for the lead at the moment. Camilleri having the best run he has had so far into turn 1. He's trying to sneak up on the inside of Tabone, but Tabone has a fantastic defense, just completely closing any kind of an opportunity, closing the door on Camilleri, just giving him barely enough room to get there into turn 1. But Camilleri just trying his best, and he is now putting far more stout of an attack, and Tabone makes a mistake into Atwood curve. At this point, I think Camilleri has it. I think Camilleri just gained the lead, and I think he's going to be going for a second win.
Is through into the lead of the race. Of course, we can't call it a win yet because he's still got over the half of the race to go. But Camilleri through to the lead, and a good move has put him up into the lead of the race. His left is braking slightly late there, but Tabone not close enough to come back at him. Also, there was a mistake for Abdul Kader on the last lap. I didn't see quite what happened, but he's now down into 8th position from a 3rd he was running. 3rd is now Jamie Samut, followed by Chris Aloisio and Arnold Potowski. So Aloisio's got Potowski since last time I looked. And then it's Agris and Absmeyer. Oh, Absmeyer's the laggy car I saw earlier. He does appear to be glitching around the place a bit. But hopefully that doesn't come of anything, and hopefully it doesn't spoil the races of any other drivers. Meanwhile, Daniel Streamer, you're right, has had issues. He's now sitting in the pits, not really doing much, and I think we've lost 3 drivers from this race.
I think that's very much right, and I think we're now down to 10 drivers on the track and who are racing for positions. And by the looks of it, at the moment, Camilleri is already starting to run away from Brandon, and otherwise every single driver seems to be over a second away from each other. The only driver that I can see at the moment possibly attempting an attack is John Agbees on 5th place of Arnold Potowski. At the moment, he's doing they're in a bit of a train, actually.
Well, in fact, he's less than half a second behind Potowski, but does make a slight mistake there. So Potowski certainly not in the clear yet, and in fact, Aloisio ahead of him isn't that much further ahead of him. So definitely still some tension there, and behind them, this is a pretty long chain actually, because we've got Absmeyer, we've got Abdul Kader still. They're not really that far behind each other. So from 4th to 8th, it's still open.
Chris Aloisio just made a mistake going into Atwood curve, and now Potowski, from being the guy who's being attacked, is the attacking driver, going for the 4th place, attempting for a move, going to the inside and not quite braking quite early. Both of these drivers losing a lot of time to Agbees, and now it's going to be a 3-way scrap between for 4th place between those 3 drivers, and being very close, all within 1 second.
Fantastic, and Jamie Samut really not that much further up the road as well, so it could be from 3rd down to 8th this battle here. But Petkovski, as you say, attacking Aloisio, and now Aloisio goes wide, and Petkovski takes the inside line, but that's going to turn into the outside because of this switchback nature of the circuit. We've seen that in a couple of places on the track, but Petkowski gets a much better exit, although he just can't find a way through. That's the difficulty with the circuit. The outside turns into the inside, and then the inside turns into the place you really don't need to be. But Petkowski gets a much better exit onto the back straight, onto the pit straight rather, and Petkowski down the inside. Rub doors, look at that! And he brakes later. Does he get it slowed in time? Yes, he does. And Arnold Petkowski goes through into 4th position ahead of Chris Aloysiu.
And luckily, John Agris actually just got hit by the problem of Jason Absmeyer being on his inside and lagging him out of the circuit, essentially. So unluckily, John Agris being an innocent party right now with against lag issues of another driver.
Oh,
so.
Aloysio's in the gravel. Aloysio left his braking too late. He's in the gravel, and Petkowski's back into 2nd. Absmeyer's back into 6th with that lag issue, and Agris is facing backwards. He's lost 8th, he's lost 9th, he's lost 10th. In fact, he very nearly hits 10th. That was very, very close. But Agris is now down to last after and Aloysio's off again. Now what's happening to Aloysio? Because Aloysio, we saw him in the gravel just now before Agris went off, but he went into the gravel again in the hairpin there. So possibly brake problems or something like that for Chris Aloysio, who just lost out to well, that would have been, I'm not quite sure, because as I said before, the timing only updates itself after every lap, and there's too many just almost plain white cars on this track.
Well, at the moment, what I can tell you right now is Absmeyer is being half a second behind Petkowski for 4th, but the problem is Absmeyer is having issues with his lag. Still lag. It's the thing. We've seen that earlier, and I think between the races I've seen this thing go up to all the way 450. So it's a little bit scary at the moment.
And he's now trying to go to the outside of Petkowski. Petkowski gets very, very sideways, somehow holds it. And that was close, but yeah, Absmeyer does seem to be struggling with lag today, and that is an issue because, as you said, he's already run Aloysio off the road, not through his own fault, but if a car's lagging like that, sometimes it can become a proper safety hazard. So hopefully that's sorted itself out. He certainly doesn't appear to be glitching around at the minute, but he has been, so we need to keep an eye on that. And now he's getting very close to Petkowski. I've just noticed something which interests me. It's that the game seems to have registered that Aloysio is on the medium compound of tyre rather than the softer compound. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that's accurate, but if that's the case, maybe he feels like the tyres just go off too quickly. Now, I wouldn't have thought so, but no. It's an interesting one. Oh, I mean, and Petkowski leaves his braking later. Absmeyer's trying to come through. He's going around the outside. That's not going to work, surely. And Petkowski gets to keep the position. But I've seen a couple of guys going side by side through that so far today, and doesn't seem to work. But it definitely shows who's on the attack.
As apparently at the moment, Chris Aloysiu gets mugged by Omar Barbara. He gets overtaken in the final sector. And that's changed for the 7th place. Chris Aloysiu, if he is in fact on the harder compound of tires, which I'm gonna check right now, I think has made a mistake in that sense. Yes, I think he definitely is on a medium compound of tire.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't really think there was going to be any change in tyre strategy today, but whatever the case, still Absmeyer close to Petkowski, and they're gaining time on Samu for 3rd. It could turn into a 3-way battle. The last position on the podium here. Of course, Petkowski was ahead of Samut at one point, but then we had a couple of incidents, and Samut got back through again.
It seems we're gonna have quite a lengthy night tonight, looking through almost all the laps of this second race to obviously give the relative penalties for any misconduct on track.
I think that's going to be a very long night for indeed anybody involved in the disciplinary actions in Sim Racing Malta. And at the moment, as Jason Absmeyer goes for the inside and cannot quite make it, as we have a Petkowski hit Sama on the back end, and now we have more contact between Absmeyer and Samet as Absmeyer couldn't stop it in time and hits him on the side. So at the moment, I think that's another one to add to your list right there, Adrian.
Yeah. Talking of life stewards.
Sure, yeah, a little bit more. So that may be added another 10 minutes to the long night we have.
Well, I hope you're going to enjoy your long night, and I hope you have a lot of Red Bull or coffee or another caffeinated beverage of choice. So, anyway, at this point, that has concluded our battle for third place at the moment, I think. Petkowski is now seemingly running away, and Absmeyer is over 3 seconds behind, and we still have, I think that's 8 laps to go, or 9. Or thereabouts. Anyway, so there's still quite a lot of laps to go until the end of the race, and at the moment, by the looks of it, everyone has actually gone into their own little zone, except I think possibly Omar Barbara, who's possibly going for Samet, who's just made a mistake going to Atwood Curve, and we're going to see a bit of an action upstairs. Another one to look for.
And after that big sort out, it's Petkowski in third, Absmeyer in fourth, Abdul Kader in fifth, Samit in sixth, and Barbara in seventh. But I thought we were going to have a proper incident there between Samit and Barbara. Luckily they did. Nothing else comes of it, and off goes Samit. So Samit locks up and goes straight off and into the gravel, and through goes Barbara into sixth position. Samit doesn't lose seventh, but certainly lost sixth, and now he's in the gravel again on the extra revolver. So something is happening with Samit here. He's not as confident in the car as he was earlier. And, well, we've seen this from a couple of drivers today. There have just been periods where they've suddenly started to drive off the road in every corner.
It's a factor of a couple things. Possibly overheated tires, possibly the driver just not being quiet on top of his game. After you make a mistake in a car, you always lose a bit of confidence, and you always take a couple corners, maybe even a lap, to kind of reaccustom yourself to a slightly slower but maybe more safe pace, and then you start pushing from there again. It happens to a lot of drivers, and I know definitely it's an effect that happens to most whenever they make a mistake.
Oh, and again Samit's made a mistake. He's been into the gravel again, and Aloysio's getting him on the outside now. So again Samit loses it, and Aloysio is alongside him. They rub doors. Look at that. And he gets over the grass, and there's more contact, and they both go into the barrier. Huge crash. Up in the air goes Aloysio, spins it back around. Hopefully everyone else avoids him. Through goes Ashenko, through goes Agui. I don't believe there's anyone behind them, but wow, that was very, very messy.
That was very, very messy, and I'm not sure who to blame here. And I think we know who's going to have another 10 minutes out of their time tonight. But for sure, it was a very unlucky move, and both of them in the wall, both of them losing a lot of time. But at the moment, I think we're having a bit of a battle for actually third place between Arnold Petkowski and Jason Absmeyer again, and I think Petkowski actually just got mugged again.
Actually, if it keeps on going like this, I'm gonna send somebody to get me a sleeping bag. So.
Well, I think you may as well send him off to do it now, because I think this is not going to stop.
Yes, very much so. And as you said, Absmeyer has now got through up into third position, ahead of Arnold Petkowski. And believe it or not, Mr. Stewart, we still have over six laps of this race to go. So hold tight, and it's going to be a long one. So Absmeyer ahead of Petkowski. Abdul Kader is in fifth, and then Barbara in sixth. We can pretty much ignore the top two at this point. Camilleri is over 7 seconds ahead of Stavone, who is over 30 seconds, so over half a minute ahead of Absmeyer in third. There's a massive gap back to third there, and then they're all bunched up behind. And well, they're not really close enough for an attack. There's a lot of drivers close enough that if they're going front, made even the slightest of errors, they'd be together. As meanwhile, Jamie Samut is in the pits. So Samut, who was really battling for that third position until very recently, is in the pits. He's just exiting the pits now, so obviously there was just a little bit of damage, but he's certainly not going to be gaining any positions back so long as there aren't any more incidents ahead of him. And Samut lost a lot from that, so Samut in 10th is, well, even more 10th than he was before, I'm afraid.
I think at this point, you could nearly say that Brandon Tambone could literally just stop, go get himself a cup of coffee, drink it, and still be ahead of third place. So, I mean, that's the kind of gap he has at the moment. I think this is all due to the whole a lot of battling. And to be honest, Tambone and Camilleri have been showing very, very good pace this race. I need to exactly see now. But I know they were doing 34s early race, and I know Camilleri is still doing 34 as well. Tambone is doing 35, so they're both doing pace that's much better than pretty much everyone else on the track at the moment. But at the moment, it looks like Barbara is actually going to be attacking Abdelkader actually for P5. Let's see. Yes, Barbara having the run. I don't think he's going to be able to quite attack into Abdelkader curve. He's trying on the outside. He's having a better exit. Completely. Oh my gosh. Abdelkader actually completely messes up the corner. Goes on the inside. Doesn't get stopped in time. Tries to hit the apex, but the problem with that is that Omar Barbara had so much more speed that he was already ahead of Haytham just before the apex even happened. So that was quite an overtake from Barbara, and I think a massive misdrive and a mistake from Abdelkader.
Absolutely fantastic move from Barbara to get past Abdelkader, but you must say Abdelkader made it very, very easy for him there, and he'll be feeling a bit silly about that. We've got 5 laps remaining in this race. The gap to the lead is, well, if you round it up, 10 seconds now. It's very much in the command of Keith Camilleri, who's heading for a double victory, followed by Brandon Tambone, and then it's behind that it's all a little bit less convincing.
Driver on the side of the road, who was that now?
It looks as if we've... Well, no, it seems everyone's running.
It was Jamie Summit that was off the track in the last corner, so from bad towards his race is just not going very well. He can't even drive his car right now without making too many mistakes, really. So I think this is actually partly due to quite heavy damage to this car, and you can actually see his boot lid being a bit ajar, and his front end just shaking all over the place. I think that car is really pretty much toast.
Yeah, he's actually just about to be lapped. There's a car in his mirrors, and he seems to have massive understeer through the corner there. Oh my word, look at his steering on the straight. He's steering about 90 degrees. So that's a very, very poorly car there, and I can't imagine it's going to be much good to drive at the minute.
No, that would be an awful car to drive, and that would explain why he's so much off the pace. His car is absolute toast, and in certain other simulators, I can tell you right now, he'd have the meatball flag and being told that he has to come into the pits for repairs.
Well, in reality, he probably would be, so he probably should come into the pits again. But what's that?
I'd say so, yes. That is definitely a car that's undrivable and unsafe to others on the track currently.
And he's off again. Oh wow, big. Oh no, that was Absmeyer. I was looking at the wrong car. So Jason Absmeyer there had a little instant. Well, not a little instant, a bit of a wiggle from third position, and well, that was a little bit embarrassing. But he's kept everything together, so no one saw anything.
And at this point, I think we have all of our gaps are over 2 seconds at this point. So I think we're having a moment of these cars just not having any battles going on, which is quite new considering we've had basically the last 37 laps full of racing.
Well, I mean, it'll probably sort itself out again towards the end of the race. We might have an accordion. I don't know why I couldn't say that. Accordion effect. We often see that at the end of the race, where the drivers in front feel like they don't really have to push anymore, and the drivers behind feel like they absolutely do. And sometimes they end up meeting each other at the end of the race. I've seen that happening a couple of times, but with 3 laps to go, you can't really imagine much else changing without mistakes. So, without trying to apportion the commentator's curse, look at the top 2.
I mean, they're way, way ahead of anybody else on the track currently, and everyone else seems to be a bit more bunched up, but they're in their little bubbles of essentially 4 seconds, 3-4 seconds each. and it just seems like they're just not quite. It seems like we have sorted ourselves out into our pace kind of groups. But something that's interesting, I'm not entirely sure what the lead right now is between Tabone and Absmeyer, because right now it's jumping between 30 and 50 seconds for me for some reason.
Well, it is. It's about, well, no, it's about 5, yeah, it's about 12 seconds now, so.
Tabone and Absmeyer?
Not Spin and Absmeyer. No, it is about 35 seconds now between those two. So.
No, it's been jumping up to 50 for me sometimes.
Well, at the rate these leaders are going, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, not at all. I mean, it is basically 50 seconds for Keith Camilleri at this point, as far as I can tell. So yeah, I do enjoy front-wheel drive racing. It's always very, very interesting, and I feel like these cars and generally touring cars provide some of the most fantastic enclosed racing. And especially in sim racing, there's that little bit more added to it that usually we're not having issues with any aerodynamics, which we have seen being a problem in real life in a couple series nowadays. But this is definitely something. But these cars, I think, are fantastic, and I think I really hope to see more of them racing. And I know this mod has been around for a very long time, but it's a big props to the creator for maintaining them and upgrading them to all the tire models that this mod went through, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I do love a good touring car race a lot of the time. I think it's definitely the car, or the category of car that I'm strongest in, the touring car. I do touring car racing and GT racing, but yeah, front-wheel drive certainly some of the most fun cars to drive. As I said earlier, you can really fling them wherever you want to, and they will just find grip a lot of the time. And that's what I love about this. And the way that to correct a slide, you don't brake, you apply the power, and that's always fun.
Indeed, and usually you don't even get to slide too much, or you use the slide to go through a corner quicker.
You'd be surprised.
Well, I've raced a couple front-wheel drive cars in my day, so they're fantastic. They're fantastic fun, and they're usually much more difficult than you actually think that they are when you first see them. And you hear, "Oh, but this car you don't have to worry about sliding."
Wow! Did you see that? Aloisio got very, very sideways and hit the leader. There was slight contact between Aloisio and Camilleri for the lead of the race. Of course, Aloisio's a lap down. It wasn't big contact, but it was so hairy, and I tell you what, Keith Camilleri will be absolutely fuming, and this heart rate will be through the ceiling. That was incredible.
Well, I think I'm going to have to repeat myself. Somebody's not going to have any sleep tonight.
Oh, goodness.
Well, no, absolutely, and it's always, to be honest, it's actually quite scary. And I've had actually a situation today when I was racing a Daytona prototype at Bathurst in another series myself, and there was a Ferrari GT3 car who decided to let me go, but decided to let me go in such a way that he actually brake checked me. So, yeah, I feel like I can definitely feel the frustration from Keith Camilleri already without him having to say a word right there.
I tell you what, if they'd actually come together, that would have been absolutely devastating. Not just because Camilleri's leading by so far, but because this is the final lap of the race. So Camilleri has started the final lap of the race and been clobbered. So he's still running, and it doesn't appear that he's got any damage. But I tell you what, that was very, very hairy. And if we hear an interview from him after this race, I really want to find out what his reaction was there. But through the final corner comes Keith Camilleri. A fantastic victory despite, and he's going to win it by pretty much 13 seconds. Fantastic, he weaves it across the line. He's not worried about anything. And Keith Camilleri wins it 2 out of 2. Fantastic. Brandon Tabone through the final corner is going to be second place. A good result to hold on there from Tabone, but he's a long way down and did very well to hold off Camilleri for so long, but 13.6 seconds is the gap. Jason Absmeyer is going to be third place. He's a long way ahead of Petkowski in fourth. So Absmeyer, well, we're going to have to wait about half a minute for him. I'm not sure whether the countdown time is going to let him finish.
I think it's just about gonna. I think it's going to be just about enough for Absmeyer to actually finish. I'm not sure about anybody else this race.
No.
Going to finish.
Okay, well that's good. It looks like he has more time than I thought, but well, we really need to get rid of that countdown time for next time out because it held a few cars back at Spa as well. But Absmeyer is third. Fourth is going to be Arnold Pitkovsky, but he's not going to finish, so that's going to be an aggregate fourth position, you could say. So at the end of all of that, as the time finishes, it was Camilleri who won the race, followed by Tabone, Absmeyer, Pitkovsky, Barbara, Abdelkader, Ashenko, Aguiz, Aloisio, and Samut, who just about finished at the back. And out of the race, of course, we had Streamer, Grech, and Baruki. And then not starting after also not finishing race one were Kakashevsky, Golin, Cams, and Sherry. But what a race that was. And what drama we had almost at the very end of the race.
Indeed, that was very, very close to being... that was pretty close to Camilleri having an absolute heartbreak on the very last lap. But he did manage to go through, and he managed to win both races. So absolutely some fantastic driving from Camilleri there. And actually, to be honest, somebody who's also done very well was Brandon Tabone. Very, very good race the second time around, holding Camilleri until quite a few laps into the race.
I tell you what, let's speak to him. Brandon, can you hear us? Well, we've got a couple of drivers in for the interviews. We're just going to have to wait for them to be unmuted. I think I'll go through them in alphabetical order, so no particular order here. But Brandon Tabone is first up. So Brandon, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Jolly good. So second place in race two there. You held off Camilleri for quite a while, actually. Did you know that he was so quick, or did you think you had a chance of holding him off there?
No, he was very, very quick, and I tried to block everywhere for him, but I did a mistake. I lock up the tires, and he passed away.
But I tell you what, that was a double podium for you. You had a close battle with Jason in race one. Talk us through how that looked from your point of view.
Yes, he was behind me practically all the race. Last few laps, he was very, very close. And at the last lap, he was going to make it, but I closed last few corners and I managed to finish third.
And, well, it was an interesting car and track combination. Of course, it would. They never raced here in reality, being a British Championship. But what did you think of the car or the circuit or both put together?
Yeah, the circuit is very nice. The car is front-wheel drive, so it's a bit tricky to drive. We used to drive rear-wheel drives on Sim Racing, but it was very fun.
All right. Well, thanks for speaking to us, and we'll move next on to a Keith Camilleri. Hello, Keith.
Hello.
So, Keith, well, 2 victories. How did that look from your point of view? You had qualifying, you had race 1, you had race 2. It was dominant. Did it feel easy? Just how did it look?
No, it's never easy. You always have to push, especially with these drivers like Brendan and Terence and even Omar. They are very, very quick, so it's never easy with them.
But well, you really got a hang of this car and track. What's the secret?
Basically, I would like to thank Brendan because he was kind enough to share the setup with me because he's like a expert on setting up cars at the moment, and he gave me the setup, and I felt the car very good. It was like I could control in every corner. Just I need to take care of the lockups because that was just the weak point of the car.
Yeah, well, still managed to win both races. A great performance, and I take it you're very, very happy with that.
Yes, for sure, especially because we have that amazing prize thanks to Garmin Malta. So yeah, maybe that's why I pushed a bit more today. But I would like to say also for Terence Grech, I felt sorry for him in the second race. He got like hit or something, and it could have been a good race in the second one.
Tell you what, though, you had your own little scare actually going on to the final lap of race 2. I just about saw that. Talk us through what your reaction was as the lap car had a bit of a wiggle alongside you.
Yeah, I think he didn't saw me coming, so I think maybe he panicked or something. But it was going to be scary for me.
Well, you made it through, so thanks for speaking to us, and we will see you next time. Fantastic double victory.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Right, next up we have Terence Gray. Hello, Terence.
Hey there.
So, Terence, it was a good start to the race weekend for you. So let's look at the positives initially. Second in race 1. Talk us through how that was for you.
Yeah, at the start, I really had a very good start. I was overtaking almost Keith there, and we were like about half a track, even 3/4. I think the first lap, we were like side by each other. And yeah, and the third last lap, I think, the first lap, I mean, I just locked out, and he just overtook me there, and I did some small mistakes from lap to lap, and that's why he maintained a bit the gap. But yeah, he did a very great job, which to congratulate Keith from here.
Now, on to race 2. Normally, when we say a driver's flying, we mean it in a figurative sense, and it's a positive thing. But today, it was not a positive thing. What's it like up there?
Yeah, I'm so disappointing in race 2. I did a very good start as well. I was overtaken about 2 cars in the first corner. Then I saw a car just crashed into the wall, and he was just spinning, and he just went in the middle of the track, and I couldn't avoid him, and I crashed heavily with him, and my car was totally a disaster, and I couldn't continue with it. So yeah, that's race over for me, unfortunately.
Well, huge disappointment, but do you think the podium in race 1 makes up for it? I suppose you're still disappointed about race 2.
Yeah, well, obviously, you can't be happy, obviously, because, well, race 2, I think, overtaking Keith that moment, so who knows what could happen, so that's why I'm disappointing. But yeah, until next time.
Well, of course, whatever next time's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be a very good event. Sim Racing Malta always host them, so yeah, jolly good. Thanks for speaking to us, Terence, and I believe that is the end of our interviews for this broadcast. So I'm going to hand over to Adrian briefly, so he can thank our sponsors.
Yeah, sure. As you all said, this is the end of the interviews. I would like to thank, obviously, our sponsors for this race is Garmin Malta, and our main sponsors, which are GT Omega Racing, Husing Welt Melita, Textor, and Extreme Power Sport. We'll be definitely now with you next week, Friday next week, with our Porsche Cup next round, and we're gonna have few races coming up, casual races. So I'd like to thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Casper, for today. It was great having you with us, and I hope we'll have you with us in the near future too.
That was a pleasure, and hopefully see you soon.
Internet issa f'Malta. Gawdi mill-Giga Power biss mal-Melita Flexi.